Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Straight Shooting Series, the European edition, tonight with Joey Legend, the famous wrestler from Canada. Now he resides in Hanover, Germany, is that right, Joe? Alright. Well, we're gonna start right away with the very beginning of your career, which started in Canada. Tell us a bit about you, how you got into the wrestling business, who were your trainers, and what was your inspiration getting into the wrestling business?
Well, I was in martial arts for 10 years, karate and kung fu. I got 4 black belts. I got to the point where I could, fight well, but who cares if you can beat up everybody in the unemployment line. Needed to make a living, so I'd always had an interest in wrestling. My dad used to take me to see shows done by the Sheik, the original Sheik, and the Bear Man, back when Sabu was first breaking in without the Sabu gimmick in Toronto. So we used to go see those, and I just kind of got into it that way, my interest-wise, around 14 years old. And then from there, progressed to going down to Maple Leaf Gardens and seeing WWF I think it was every 2 weeks at the time. They were really hot then. And decided I wanted to get more involved. I like being physical. I've always been athletic and stuff. Maybe it's just because I have asthma and I feel I've got to beat it and I have to prove it to myself every time. But that's what I ended up doing. That could be the reason behind it. But I used to play football. I played a little basketball and stuff. But and I mean proper hit people football, not soccer.
So there was an intention of getting you physical with others.
Yeah, I like that. I like the one-on-one aspect, or even 2-on-2. Yeah, I just always enjoyed that. So from there I went to downtown Toronto to Sweet Daddy Siki and Ron Hutchison.
Sweet Daddy Siki, yeah, I know him. He was like an inspiration for later Butch Reed, the Nashville.
With the big blonde
yeah.
He's a wonderful sweetheart.
Is he still
a couple times a year? Yeah, he's a wonderful man. You couldn't ask for a nicer guy.
Is he Canadian?
No, he's originally from the States, but he married a Canadian woman, so he moved to Toronto. And then Ron Hutchison is probably the best wrestler you never heard of. Used to get killed on WWF TV every week. I used to look forward to seeing him get his ass kicked on WWF TV. Yeah.
That was he was the original trainer of yours.
Him and Siki together. I found out that was my first lesson, that guys that you see on TV who get killed every week aren't as bad as you would think. That a lot of guys just don't get pushed. Yeah. They might be the best wrestler in the world, but if the office doesn't get behind them, they get beat on TV. But Ron was one of the best wrestlers out there, but you never got to see it, which is too bad. I mean, he didn't have a great body, but he had a great mind. He could do just about anything you asked for in the ring, and he was just a tremendous talent. It's too bad more promoters didn't get a good look at that.
Was Ron ever under contract of some major promotion?
No, he used to work out in the east coast of Canada as the intelligent, sensational masked thunderbolt, the world's only living or dead for that matter masked sex symbol, and predominantly there, and then just Ontario Independence. I don't think he did much beyond that. I read WWF job, man.
Yeah, I read that Ron Hutchison isn't much older than you. He's about 41 or 42. Is it true?
Yeah, not too much older than me. I'm getting old myself. I know. Thanks for poking fun at that.
How was the first training lessons? Can you describe it? I mean, we've heard a lot about training from stars when they got started into the business. Was it really tough?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I was in better shape by the end of my initial training with wrestling. I was in better shape then than I was after 10 years of karate. I mean, nothing against my karate or kung fu. I love that, and I would never trade that for anything. But Siki, he was in the army years and years ago. So Siki, he likes all the old army training and breaking people down and stuff.
Really?
And we used to do workouts like one called PTA, which is pain, torture, and agony.
Pain, torture.
And this thing, the Russian Olympic team does it for, I think, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Ron and Siki had us doing it for 45. So they used to beat us down. But in turn, I got in tremendous condition. And that's why, to this day, I mean, I much prefer doing 45 and 50-minute matches than the 8-minute TV matches you see. I much prefer longer matches.
You mentioned us. Is this the reference to guys like Edge, Adam Copeland, and
Christian, Swinger?
So, tell us about the group itself who got started. You got started similar at the same time with Edge and Christian?
I started before him. I started about a year before Edge. Edge had been in the gym about 2 weeks before I left for my first tour of Japan for FMW. So I didn't really get to know him. I just, I saw him take his first bump and his eyes bug out of his head. He knocked the wind out of himself, which happens to just about everybody when they first start. You could tell he had a certain star quality about him. I didn't realize he'd go as far as he would because he was very skinny. I mean, he's bulked up considerably since he started. But he's so skinny, I was like, I don't know if, because Vince has this kind of hard-on for muscle guys. But Adam did have a good star quality about him. And then Christian started a year after him. And Christian just picked up everything so quick. I mean, Christian probably picked up everything quicker than anybody I've ever seen. He was ready. I mean, I was training for 2 years before my first match. I was ready after about a year, but there was just nothing going on. Edge was ready after about a year. Christian was ready after about 4 months. He picked it up so quick. And Swinger picked things up really quick, too. And Swinger also brought the aesthetic part of it, because we were all so busy trying to be the best wrestlers in the world that nobody hit the gym to work out. Swinger showed up, and he'd been training in the gym for years to look good, because he just understood the philosophy of Vince will hire you if you suck as long as you look good. And then he decided not only to look good but also to not suck. So Swinger's a guy who deserves a better spot than he's gotten in a lot of the promotions he works for, because he's a talent.
And who else was were in the group? I mean, there were. Rhino, was Rhino already there?
No, Rhino trained in Detroit and in Hamilton.
What about the guys like Brody Steele and the big...
in the east coast of Canada. I came out to the east coast in '98, and Brody's been training, I think, for a year. And then I gave him like his first series of matches in '98. Back when they were calling him the Mighty Hercules, which is... Really? Yeah, he hates that. So please, aggravate him about it.
The Mighty Hercules.
And then I did a series with him again in '99. And he's just progressed so much. He's like the absolute opposite of every like dumb muscle man. Everybody thinks he's a big body, small brain type thing, but he is a big, strong guy. I mean, he's built like Sid for crying out loud. Yeah. He's far more athletic and
agile,
smart. Yeah, he's reasonably agile and just witty, funny, intelligent. Smart guy. I mean, he's got a lot going for him.
I mean, too bad that he didn't end up in WWF or some other major promotion.
The only reason I could see them not looking at him is because he didn't come to them when he was 20. And they're looking to hire him young now, and develop him from a very young age. He's a little bit older than me. I think he's 37 or 38. So if he's a little bit older than me, they're probably looking at him as like, well, he's older, he's a little bit more injury, he might be injury prone. Though I haven't seen any injuries out of the guy. He's played it smart with everything he does, and I think they should not necessarily look at the age, but look at the history and what he's done and what he's not injured. I think he's done pretty well for himself.
So when did you had your first match? Can you remember your first match?
My first match
at some show?
A guy named, his real name's Keith Assoon. He's now an actor.
Keith?
Keith Assoon, yeah.
Never heard of him.
Guy, one of my best friends.
Really?
He wrestled under the name Johnny Destiny. He wrestled under the name T.T. St. Croix. He was a marvelous talent in the Larry Zbyszko mold. He was a real good, psychologically sound wrestler. Everything he did was believable and strong. He just didn't have any like spectacular holy cow moves like moonsaults or anything like that. Just a solid on the mat, tough guy wrestler, and a smart guy too. I had my first match with him. I think it was June 6th of '92.
'92. So in the early '90s, it was your break into the business, really.
He showed up at the gym to train for about a month, and then Siki was showing him a move and broke his ankle.
Really?
So then so he was out for I think 6 months, and then he came back in just as I joined the gym. So he really had to start from ground zero at the same time I did. So we broke in. We were the best of friends for a long time, and then it was just great that I had my first match with him because we clicked so well. I have that match on tape.
That wasn't
the worst baby face.
That was in Canada, the match.
Yeah, for Tiger Jeet Singh in front of 15,000 Indians.
Really?
Yeah, it was an Indian festival. We ended up with the last match of the night because it rained. Tiger was supposed to be last, but it rained, so they wanted to get him on early to make sure the Indian crowd saw the Indian superstar. And then they threw me and Keith on at the end, and we had a solid match. But you look at me in the crowd, like when they applaud, I kind of give them a dirty look. I'm like the worst babyface in history. That match, I was terrible. my wrestling was okay, but my personality was gone.
All right.
And I had a terrible mullet.
Oh, everyone had at the time.
The worst. I had the brush cut on top.
Really?
And the long hair back. Yeah.
Colored also, or just your
No, I didn't
mullet?
color it. I didn't go that far, but it was obnoxious. You can see, you can probably, if you look at Edge's book, there's probably 10 or 15 pictures of me
Really?
with the bad weeds. No tan at all. I was Casper.
So, your stint in Canada, I mean, when was your first match in the States? Like when you moved to the States and competed for some U.S. promotions?
I was still living in Canada, but I started working down, I did some shows, Swinger ran actually, back when he was Johnny Destiny.
Johnny Destiny.
In Niagara Falls, New York, because he's from Niagara Falls. So, gee whiz, if I started in 92, maybe 94 was my first match in the States.
In the States. For some indie promotion.
Well, yeah, for his promotion. Then I started going down to Detroit a lot. And that's where the Thug Life thing came in and sex violence and all that stuff. But I think Niagara Falls, New York was my first one for swing. That was my first American match. I worked with El Fuego in the opening match on the card, who's a guy who's still training, and guys in Toronto, a great guy named Rob Echeverria.
Yeah.
Runs the Squared Circle Wrestling School in Toronto. It's quite good. And then we had a battle royal at the end. So I was fired up. I would have done 100 matches a night if they'd let me.
So that was in '94 you mentioned?
I think so. I'm pretty sure it's 94.
Well, my sheet of paper said that you formed a tag team with Sexton Hardcastle, Edge, called Sex and Violence.
Yeah.
Tell us about this stable or gimmick. What is it all about?
Basically, I was hanging out with Keith. Keith and I were in a tag team. I think we called it Killer Instinct or something cheesy like that.
Yeah.
And it was going along fine. And then Edge started really picking up his game. And he really wanted to be a heel, but he just had babyface written all over him. And I said, at one point to him, I said, if you want to be a heel, I said, I think really people take to you as a babyface. It's going to be hard to turn them. I think you've got to be in a tag team with a heel. And I'd given Edge his first bunch of matches. I got him booked a bunch of places because I just had more connections from being around a little, pardon me, a little bit longer. So I talked to him. I said, if you want, I said, we'll be heels if you want to be a heel. But if you hang out with another heel, you'll get my heel steam. You get the rub from me, kind of thing. And then, then you'll build your own heel steam off of that. So we threw a bunch of ideas around, and I came up with the name Sex and Violence.
You came up with it,
yeah. And I was trying to come up, we were trying to come up with names because he was called Adam Impact. Was his first wrestling
Adam
name.
Impact?
Yeah, which is cheesy.
Did you have a manager, a valet?
We started off with none, but then everywhere we went, we kind of got over, and then of course the local manager had to they threw a manager on us.
Okay.
And most times it was terrible, but the one guy in Detroit, handsome Johnny Bradford, wrestling's only deaf manager, and he was legitimately deaf, and a wonderful, wonderful man. He used to do photography for Pro Wrestling Illustrated and that. Great man. They made him our manager in Detroit, and he wound up managing us in a bunch of places. He was probably our most steady manager. And the Sex and Violence thing caught on. We originally said we were from New Jersey, just because Adam's a New Jersey Devils fan, and I didn't care. Yeah, I'm from New Jersey, I don't care. Right. Even though I don't sound anything like somebody from New Jersey, I have that accent. And then we did a deal where it was like a breakdown of our team.
Yeah.
And at the end of the match, it was supposed to be like Christian was getting in the middle of us. Christian was trying to team with Edge, but I was like, hey, screw you, he's my partner.
Christian was also part of Sex and Violence?
No, but he
was a baby.
Like
he was a solo baby face at the time.
Solo heel.
Solo heel.
So he was kind of getting in the middle of us. So it looked like I was turning baby face and Edge was going to stay heel, and the two of them were going to jump me. And then Christian talked us into saying, look what this promotion did. They made you say you were from New Jersey. You guys are from Canada like I am. And then, we're like, yeah, screw these guys trying to make us Americans. So we became like this pro-Canadian clique. And then Rhino was involved because he was saying he was from Hamilton. So, and then Bill Scully, because it was like a hardcore ECW rip-off promotion, we needed a bleeder. And Bill Scully, his name's bloody Bill Scully, and for a reason, he pulls his face off every night. So the five of us started this pro-Canadian gimmick, and it got over big. I mean, we burnt the American flag in the ring in Detroit, and we were getting into fistfights getting back to the locker room.
Really?
Pretty much every show. And after 3 shows, Bret started his pro-Canadian gimmick in WWF and made ours look so second-rate.
Yeah.
They have all that money and all the prestige behind them. But I'm proud to say that we came up with the idea first,
for the originator.
Strength, even though Bret wound up doing it incredibly.
Yeah. Do you look up to Bret Hart as a Canadian, role model or something?
I love Bret. I'm a huge fan. Actually, I got the best compliment in my career from Bret because I wrestled in it was Melbourne, Australia, and Bret was there. And he and I talked for, God, must have been 30, 40 minutes. Right before I had to go out, he was telling me about his stroke and everything. I was like, oh my God. And they're like, Joe, come on. I'm like, you can't walk away from a guy who's telling you how he broke down, you know? Especially a guy you look up to. So I said to him, listen, you know, I have to wrestle. It was Rick Steiner I was wrestling. So I was like, listen, you know, could you just watch my match and pick it apart, you know? Just give me a critique. Yep. He's like, yeah, sure. Actually, he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. That's more Bret style, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I went and did my match. I came back, and then my sub wrestler said, did you watch the match? He goes, oh, yeah. I said, what'd you think? He goes, I thought it was really good. I wouldn't change a thing. I'm like, in other words, you didn't watch it. You're just blowing me off. He's like, no, he goes, really, I thought it was good. And he started citing specific examples of stuff I did in the match and where I tied things together and the psychology behind it. He's like, I wouldn't change a thing. I think you're really, really good. That's excellent. Don't change a thing. I thought that's pretty high praise coming from Bret. And I put Bret very much on a pedestal from a wrestling perspective. So that was probably the best compliment I ever got was don't change a thing from Bret Hart.
Yeah. Have you met other Hart members of the Hart family, like
I met Owen
the brothers?
Before he died.
Yeah.
Very nice man.
For the first time you met him?
Yeah. And I've met Bruce and Keith out in Calgary, and then one of them came to Japan, and Teddy Hart.
Yeah, of course.
Was in Japan with me.
What about Stu and Helen?
I never got to meet Stu or Helen. I talked to Stu once on the phone when I was looking at wrestling schools, and I phoned him up and we talked on the phone for a while. And he seemed like a nice enough guy, but also he was trying to sell me to school, so he's going to be nice enough to be a jerk when trying to sell the school to me.
What do you think of the Hart training? I mean, they said they saw. I mean, if you were in the dungeon, you are a pro wrestler, or you have the material for it.
It's hard for me to say because I was never there to see it firsthand. I've seen a lot of the guys who come out of there who've been quite good. I've also seen some guys who came out of there who I didn't think were that good. I like the idea that they taught a very believable style. I think that everything that you do in wrestling should be grounded in reality. I hate stuff that's way too phony, like the guy sticks his fingers here and you're all of a sudden like incapacitated, paralyzed and all stuff. That's horseshit, right? I like stuff that's grounded in reality, and I like the fact that in the dungeon they would teach you how to shoot, and then you take your shoot and you advance it into a working style. And then you gotta suspend disbelief to a certain degree, so it can't be completely believable or it's boring to a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that they ground it in reality. So if they teach you to shoot, I'm all for it. Anytime I teach a clinic or a camp, I always teach the guys how to do everything really. Not, here's how you do it and be, a phony little weasel. Here's how you do it for real. Now, just lighten up.
All right. The next fraction I'm gonna talk about is this Thug Life stable.
Thug Life, yeah.
Who got the idea? Who invented it?
When we all kind of...
It was after Sex and Violence.
Well, Sex and Violence was still a part of it.
Still a part of it?
Yeah. Because me and Adam were still we were the street fight tag champs, and we were the... What was it? Not Border City. They had 2 tag titles there. We held both. So we were the kind of push tag team there. And then Christian came in, and then eventually I think they put the tag belts on. Adam and I dropped them. I think it was the Headbangers. And then Christian and
the Headbangers was in Canada. Were in Canada?
They brought them in for a couple of shots. This was in Detroit.
All right.
And then they put their Brass Knuckles title on me. I was kind of the leader because I was kind of the best promo of the bunch.
So you were the top guy in Thug Life. You
I wouldn't say top
like the Rock in the Nation of Domination.
Yeah.
Like
in a way, yeah, I guess. I simply got the most mic time, and then eventually the promoter gave me the book for it because I just knew all the guys. I knew their strengths and weaknesses, not just from Thug Life, but the whole roster. So I started booking the matches and booking the storylines for 2, 3, 4 shows down the line. And every time I took the book for any company I worked for, houses have gone up, interest levels have gone up. We go up by about between 40 and 50 people a show. So I guess I kind of know what I'm doing. So I think that's why they would, if I'm doing that much as far as business goes, I think they go, okay, well, give Joe the mic, make him put him in a leadership capacity because behind the scenes he's done something to kind of lead the company forward. Now let's do it on camera.
So the members were you, Edge, Christian, Rhino, and what was it just And Bill Scully was a Scullion.
We had a rotating guy. Like Scullion was kind of in and out because he left and went to the other Detroit group. And Anthony Rutgazer was there for a while, and they tried to put another guy with us. And we kind of had a roving fifth guy, kind of like the Horsemen.
Okay.
You know, first they have, was it Ollie Anderson, then they kicked him out and brought in Lex, and they kicked him out, brought in Barry Windham, kicked him out, brought in Paul Rollmeyer.
Yeah.
But they always kept kind of one floater.
Yeah.
So you always had some tension in the group. Bill Scullion was kind of in the floater capacity. He wasn't originally a floater, but then when he left the company, that spot wound up being the floater spot.
So Thug Life, we're in Canada and in the States.
Yeah, we were
raising hell.
Group, but
Pro-Canadian group.
Americans, yeah.
All right, and who were you feuding with at the time? Like, who were the baby faces? I mean,
predominantly Rick Matrix was the main guy. He's a guy who really wants to be Tommy Dreamer.
Okay.
You know, and he'd go out there and he'd hurt himself. I mean, he'd get carried back to the change room. People think, "Oh, stop acting, you big jerk." He wasn't acting. He got carried back. He hurt himself for $50 a night. But he was just so passionate about what he did. I give him all the credit for his passion, if not for his brains, because he should have protected himself. Tex Monroe. They brought in some tag teams. Like I said, the Headbangers came in. There was a guy, T-Rex, and another guy came in, guys from Chicago. The DBA, Dirty Black Assassin.
But they really never made it in the later on.
They were more localized guys. I mean, most of them had regular jobs and stuff like that. But they were, I mean, to their credit, I mean, they had responsibilities and they lived up to them. They had homes, they had families, they had bills to pay, and they weren't gonna, you know, risk that for maybe a job, maybe not a job. And you're not sure if they're gonna cancel a show. They held to their responsibilities. Edge, Christian, Rhino, myself, we took chances, and thank God those chances paid off.
Yeah.
But you know, they don't pay off for everybody. So I understand that they didn't put their families' well-being at risk.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah. Speaking of chances, who called you first from WWF? How did you get in contact with
I had spoken
World
to
Wrestling
Jim
Federation?
Cornette.
When was it? Like 95 or 96?
Jim Cornette ages ago because he was still running Smoky Mountain. And Bruiser Bedlam. I don't know if you remember him.
Bruiser Bedlam?
Bruiser Bedlam.
I read about him.
Yeah, he used to be Johnny Canine in WWE.
Johnny?
He used to get his ass kicked.
Johnny Canine?
Yeah, it's the same guy.
Hasn't he got arrested for some...
Yeah, he blew up a police station in Canada, and then I guess he got acquitted or something, or did some time, and they let him go.
Yeah.
And now apparently he's
in jail
again for beating a lawyer and his wife to death. he's got issues. Okay. But anyway, he and I got along, and he said, "Oh, bro, you gotta go down to Smoky Mountain. Cornette treats you so good." I was like, "Okay." So he gave me Cornette's number. Thank you, Brewster. On camera, thank you. So I called up Cornette, and he said, "Well, right now, you know, business is down. I'll try to do what I can for you. Send me some tapes." So I sent him tapes. He's like, "I love your work, but business is so down, I can't really afford to bring you in." So standard wrestling promoter thing, I thought. He doesn't like me and is just being polite.
Yeah.
Then he got a job at WWF, and so I called him up and said, "Yeah, Jim, you like my stuff? Now you've obviously got money behind you. How about giving Joe a call?" And he was like, "Well, I'll see what I can do. You know, give me another package that I can pass on to the office." I'm like, "Okay," so I sent another package out. Called him up. "Did you get it?" "Yeah, I got it. I'll pass it on." I don't hear anything. So I thought, okay, this is in the circular file. So I was in Germany for my first tour in '98, and called home to my parents.
That was in CWA, right?
Yep.
Okay.
In Hanover, and I went out to dinner after one of the shows. This place called the Alexander, great restaurant. Great because it's open late.
Yeah.
And so I called home just to say hi to my parents, see how they're doing, and they said, "Oh, some guy named Jim Cornette called for it." I'm like, "What?" Yeah. So they said, "Yeah, give him a call. It's he says it's urgent." So I called Jim right away. I get his answering machine, and he picks up. As soon as I say, "Yeah, Jim, it's Joe Legend," boom, he picks up. "Hey, Joe, I'm so glad to hear from you. Can you be in Rochester like this weekend?" I'm like, "Why couldn't you call any other time? I'm sitting at home. I'm working at bars. I'm hating. No. Why do you call me
in Europe
when I'm in Germany?" He goes, "Oh, you're in Germany. That's awesome. You're working every night. Oh, that's gonna sell so well." I said, "It doesn't sell well if I'm not there for the tryouts." He says, "Don't worry. We'll get you a tryout as soon as you come back." So I came back at the end of December, called Jim and said, "Yeah, I'm home, blah, blah, blah." February, he gave me a call, said, "Yeah, we're doing the show at the Skydome. We'll get you a dark match." So Skydome, 44,000 people.
That's Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And got my first tryout.
So that was in 97? 98? 98.
February 98.
No, the match was a disaster? Yeah. Why was that?
Brutal.
Against?
Sorry, no, February 99.
99, yeah. And who was your opponent?
Fuego Echeverria.
El Fuego.
Yeah. Just everything went wrong. I was so frustrated at the end of it. I mean, he started getting nervous towards the end of or just as we were about ready to go out, he kind of playing the cool guy. I've done dark match before, no big deal. When it came to bell time, I was like, there's a lot of people out there. I was like, don't you start getting nervous on me now. I'll kill you, your family, and your pets. I was like upset. I went up there, the match, but I didn't like it at all. I thought it was terrible. But Christian was in the gorilla position, and gorilla's right behind the curtain, watching the monitors. And he talked to, I think it was Tom Pritchard and Bruce Pritchard and somebody else who was there. And when I got back, I was like, I can't believe this. This sucks. I gotta call WCW. I gotta do something. And he said, no. They said they seem to really like you.
Yeah.
I was like, from that?
So they still had trust in you.
Well, yeah. They said, like things went wrong, but you kept picking up the ball. The ball get fumbled, but you pick it up and get back on track. And they like that. You're a heads-up player. I'm like, I guess, hey, if it's positive, it's positive. I'm not gonna steer a gift horse in the mouth. So they sent me for a camp. I did well at the camp. They liked me there, and we kept in touch. And then I did another tour of Eastern Canada. Towards the end of the tour, I get a call from Christian saying, listen, you're going to get a call from WWF. Terry Taylor's going to call you. They want to bring you in. I'm like, okay. So they're going to have the new Freebirds, and they want you to be one.
The new Freebirds?
The new Freebirds.
Who came up with the idea? Jim Cornette?
Michael Hayes.
Of course.
He just finished managing the Hardy Boys, and they pulled the Hardys off.
All right.
He wanted to be on camera.
A new Freebird with you and who?
It was me, Reckless Youth, and then there was a million rumors as to who the third guy was. Scott Vick was the most predominant name brought up constantly. But they said, we want you to be the new Freebird. You're going to be the Terry Gordy of the group. I was like, fabulous! I'm a big Terry Gordy mark. That's cool with me. So we'll bring you in for a camp, and they brought me in for camp. Conveniently, the camp was like the day after I finished up on the East Coast.
All right.
It worked out perfectly. I didn't have to cancel a date or nothing. So I hopped a plane down to Connecticut, did a couple of matches, at the camp. Me and Reckless, we're all set to do a match just in the gym for them. And they said, listen, you're supposed to do the match like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They go, it's 11 o'clock now. Michael Hayes has to go, so you guys are going to wrestle now. Go. Okay. So we rushed in the ring and just went and called the match. Did a 8-10 minute match.
That was pretty good.
And they loved it.
Yeah, but Tom Carter's a good man.
So they signed the two of us right standing there. And then Michael Hayes, I guess, either he decided or they decided they didn't want him on camera. Something happened where he wasn't going to be on camera. So they ditched the Freebird gimmick. And then...
And you wrestled at the time, was it Joey Legend or Joe Legend?
Joe Legend, yeah.
Just Joe Legend.
Joey Legend.
Joey Legend.
Yeah. E is not for extreme or anything. It's Edwards, my middle name.
Joe, yeah, of course. So that was in '99. And
September of '99, I got signed.
When did they tell you that you changed your gimmick, or how long did it last till they came up with this Just Joe's thing?
Disaster. I was with the company for 7 months before they got my work permit together. Don't ask why it took 7 months. I've never had a legal problem in my life, but it took them 7 months. So in that time, I went and had a meeting with Vince, and we threw a couple of ideas around. I threw 3 or 4 ideas at him, and all of them he said, nah, I don't really like them, and then I found him putting them on everybody else.
Yeah, well, what were your ideas?
I came up with, I said, one idea, I said, is I should cut off, because I had hair like down to here at the time. I said, cut all my hair off. I said, let me say that America's, got to straighten up and fly right. They got to get a haircut and a real job and stop screwing around, because grunge was kind of in at the time. So all this flannel and looking like a dirt, having 15 piercings in your face, looking like you fell down a flight of stairs, holding a tackle box. I said, it's time for America to straighten up and lose all these tattoos and start acting like real, I want to be like a 1950s old hard ass, I'm kind of...
With short hair.
Yeah, I'm kind of conservative to be get-go. So, and I said, I want to have a group and call them the Moral Majority. I said, the whole thing is, we're going to, honest to goodness, old-fashioned values, da-da-da. And Vince says, no, I don't think that'll ever fly. Then the right to censor comes out.
Yeah. I thought about it,
I said I wanted to do a thing with a cult leader. I said, to me, I don't know, I just find
some like spiritual cult or religious stuff.
Well, the thing is, the David Koresh thing for some reason was in the news again.
Waco, Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I said, I've already got kind of the hair. My hair is a lot longer, but I still got long hair. I said, you give me glasses. It's not hard to put it over. I said, just the whole cult thing is just spooky.
Yeah.
It gets under your skin.
Yeah, of course.
That's what you want. You don't just want to hear who I'm big and strong. I punch you, you fall down.
Yeah.
That's very basic. It only has a short shelf life. But this gets under your skin. This creeps people out. So people will talk about this. And he's like, well, you know, I don't like the whole religious, you know, connotations or aspects of it. I don't like religious undertones. We're very
could be edgy,
non-partisan. Yeah. I said, yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, brother love, the ministry of darkness. The breeze. Of course, yeah. You don't ever touch religion. Right? So. That kind of annoyed me, but I'm like, okay. I said, I'm not saying I'm God. I'm just saying, like, I'm the messenger. You know, I'm a guy who's representing God. But then in turn, of course, I'm really a hypocrite. I'm actually representing myself, and I'm the snake. You know, but that's the heat. The hypocrisy is the heat.
So he didn't like it either.
And he said, well, he goes, ooh, I like that messenger bit. He said, don't shoot me. I'm just the messenger. And I'm like, all right. So that's kind of weak, but if that's what you want.
Just the messenger. He was
very into that idea of the messenger, and then so we tossed the idea around. Eventually, kind of came to be like a paid informant, and my perspective of it was to be kind of like people are backstage guys like, oh man, I gotta wrestle Taz tonight. That guy freaking throws you on your head. He's a killer. And I'd be like, yeah, well, you know, I know how to beat Taz if you want. And the guy slips me some money. I said, all right, Taz tore his bicep, you know, last year. Go after his arm. And the guy goes after his arm and beats Taz, you know. And, you know, it shows me where I know all the ins and outs on how to beat people. And then eventually I go out there and do it myself because there's more money in me winning than them.
Yeah.
So that's me being a snake. So he was kind of into that idea. And then, you know, he said, well, as soon as your work permit's ready, we'll get you down here. So by the time June rolled around, this was, I think, February.
February 2000 or 2000.
So by the time June rolled around, they called me up. Actually, I was in Germany. They said, yeah, your visa came through. So I flew home. They flew me out to Vancouver. I did some dark matches. And then one night, I think it was in Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's where we started it. They cut my hair and came up with this Just Joe horse shit. Yeah. And this guy Jamie, who's a complete incompetent, they've since fired him for being a friggin'...
Jamie was a creative director or something?
Since he dropped the ball with everything else he's ever touched, they finally fired him. They didn't fire him before. He let me go, so I was the one who kind of got boned on that deal. But Jamie turned it into a ha-ha. I mean, even I did some shows with Mick Foley about a month ago, less than a month ago, a couple weeks ago. And he was making jokes the whole time. He was like talking to D'Lo backstage saying, hey D'Lo, I've got this great idea. He goes, let's have a weasel paid informant who's afraid to fight everybody, but let's make him 6'4" and 260 pounds. And he looked at me and smiled like, yeah, no kidding. You know, I tried to talk to the office. I said, give that gimmick to Jason Sensation. Remember Jason Sensation?
Jason Sensation was, yes, the impersonator.
Yeah, he's a pal of mine. He lives in Toronto. He's a great guy. Yeah.
He's great. Still does the impersonations?
Yeah, but just for his personal benefit. He does security at Much Music, which is like the Canadian MTV. But I thought, what an ideal gimmick for him. He comes over and says, yeah, friggin' Hunter, Kurt's been saying stuff about you. Hunter's like, I think you're full of crap. He pulls out a tape recorder and says, listen. And you listen to Kurt Angle saying, you know, yeah, Hunter sucks, da-da-da-da-da-da. But you never know if it was Jason doing the impression on the tape or if he actually taped Kurt.
Yeah.
That to me is heat. But instead they kept the gimmick on me. That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. And obviously you can't argue with Vince, or it's hard to convince him with your opinion.
I talked to a bunch of people, but I talked to Hunter,
but
I talked to Shane.
Stick to that.
Their whole argument was, don't worry, we got it under control. It's obviously not the gimmick for you. Mick told me when I was there. He said, yeah, your style is not at all this Just Joe thing. And I'm like, I'm just asking for some career direction. I said, am I lying or am I telling the truth when I stooge people off? I'm like, oh, we don't know. I said, well, if I'm lying, then I'm a bad guy. And obviously I have an ulterior motive. We got to decide my motive. That's going to make me the bad guy. If I'm telling the truth, I'm actually a really nice guy trying to help people out, and I'm a babyface. Give me some direction. Am I lying or am I telling the truth? Oh, we don't know. We'll let you know. And then Nick would watch my matches. He'd say, well, Just Joe, you're too aggressive to be Just Joe. Just Joe doesn't want to fight, and then you go out there and kill people. And I said, yeah, but that's how I wrestle. That's why they hired me. So you talk to the agents. The agents say, you got to be aggressive. You know, if you think you're being too aggressive, be more aggressive. You can never be too aggressive. Then I go out there and I'm aggressive, and they coach me and say, that's not your character. Don't be as aggressive. So then I lighten up and say, why aren't you so aggressive?
Yeah.
So nobody has their story straight.
Yeah.
I'm out of a job.
All right. I mean, that's the typical way of holding someone down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
whether intentionally or unintentionally, I'm pretty sure I had heat with somebody there. I'm positive I had heat with Bradshaw, but he didn't have that much pull at the time. But I had heat with somebody there because I can't imagine jerking somebody around this much without disliking him.
Yeah. What was Edge's and Christian's thoughts of the treating you?
They came up to me time and again, like, what's going on? Like, who have you pissed off? And I was told by a couple of people that Bradshaw had heat with me, and I confronted Bradshaw on it.
Nothing.
He constantly told me, no, everything's fine. And then I'd hear a week later, yeah, Bradshaw's in there bitching about you. I go, John, do we have a problem? No, everything's cool. A week later, yeah, John's in there bitching about you. So obviously, I can't keep hearing this from 10 different people and have it not be true. And he didn't have the guts to confront me. I asked him. I mean, it's not like I'm saying, talk about me, let's go outside, roar, you know. To fight them. You don't like me, I won't lose any sleep.
Yeah.
But be a man. Just tell me what your problem is. If we can hash it out and be friendly, great. If it's something we can't hash out, then let's just agree to disagree and be professionals. He decided not to be professional and just bitch about me behind my back to everybody.
So you, Bradshaw. All right. So were your close friends in the WWF besides Christian and Edge, like your Canadian buddies? Were some other guys who were close to you?
There's a tag team who's trying to, like, they were kind of new as well. They're called the Dubs, and I used to hang with them a lot. They were
Dub Brothers.
Yeah,
Stan and Bo, or what is?
Bo and Jack.
Bo and Jack.
Jack Dub, get it? They were great guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed hanging out with them. I used to hang out with the Mean Street Posse a lot.
The Mean Street Posse.
Mean Street Posse were great guys.
Well, Jason Arndt, like.
No, Rodney, Pete Gass, and Joey Maggs.
Joey Maggs. Wasn't Jason Arndt like a jobber, and then afterwards it became Joey Abs, or maybe like Joey Abs.
Possible.
Yeah.
But Joey Abs was the only one who wasn't legitimately Shane's pal. Like Rodney and Pete actually grew up with Shane.
Yeah, Pete Gass.
That was all legitimate.
Yeah.
And Rodney is one of the funniest people you ever meet. He's a wonderful guy. He's hilarious.
Are they still involved in the wrestling business, or just?
Rodney was a mechanic for like BMW or like a real high-end car company before he got into wrestling. And last I talked to him, he'd gone back to that. I think Pete Gass has a job on Wall Street now. Something to do with the stock market. They were great guys. I hung out with them a lot. Kurt Angle, I consider him a great guy.
Yeah.
I always got on well with The Rock and Austin. Austin, I didn't talk to a whole lot because he was out with that neck surgery thing.
What about Triple H?
Triple H, I mean, I spoke with him. I think he might have a little heat with me because we were at catering once, and we're both getting our food, and he's, hey, Joe, what's up? I'm like, hey, what's up? So we talked for a few minutes, and the subject of fighting came up. I said, yeah, I used to tournament fight. He goes, you? I said, yeah, I had 4 black belts. I used to tournament fight. I was offered to go to the Ultimate Fight 3 times, or to be financed to go to the Ultimate Fight 3 times. He goes, really? He said, what's your favorite, or what's your big move? You know, lying on the floor and losing? I said, no. I said, you'd be dead before you hit the floor. You fought me. The guy walked away. So I don't know whether I don't know whether he'd have heat over a comment like that. I think he'd be pretty pissy if he was.
And then Bradshaw, you mentioned earlier before, he's kind of a snake.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean the internet, you know.
He's cost more people in that company work, more quality people in that company work, simply out of, I would assume, jealousy, because he knows he's not very talented, very gifted, very agile, very physical. He's
just big,
lousy, and a great politician. And he takes liberties. So
the gimmick now that he plays, the JBL gimmick, is pretty much his real personality.
I would assume. I haven't watched it.
Huh?
I haven't seen. I've seen WWE since I moved back to Germany. We only get like a half hour of SmackDown or an hour of SmackDown every Friday, and I'm always working. So I hardly ever see it. What I've seen of it, usually when he comes on TV, I usually change the channel anyways, just because he's so blindingly boring. I've always felt him to be a very boring character. You know, the clothesline, okay, ooh, hey, that's stiff. Beyond that, I find no interest. It's 20 minutes waiting for him to hit somebody with a clothesline. There's no interest in the 19 minutes prior to that.
You think you have any chance getting back to WWE sometimes, or have you quit that the thought? Or
I think I still have heat with somebody there.
Yeah.
Number two, I have no desire to go back.
No desire.
No. I mean, just from talking to people who are there and who've been there, who've left in the past while, it's miserable. The atmosphere is miserable. I don't like the direction they take most of the characters. I don't agree with most of what they're doing. And business is going to continue to go down. As long as business is going down, there's no point in going there because it's just going to cost me money. And I like the freedom of kind of picking up and leaving where I want to go.
Yeah.
You know, I like working in Japan. I like working in Europe.
Yeah.
I like being able to pick up. I went and did Russia, you know. I like going and seeing the sights.
Yeah. Yeah, on my sheet of paper, almost forgot one man. Val Venus, Sean Morley.
Yeah.
When did you meet him first? What was it at the same time when you got started?
One of his very first matches in a little community center in Toronto. He was on it and he was nervous, and I ended up sitting half the night in the change room talking to him, trying to calm him down. But he's a wonderful guy. I couldn't speak highly enough of the guy.
Yeah.
A solid guy, solid talent.
So he's been with WWF for 10 years right now, or 8 years? Almost.
Probably 9.
9 years?
9 or more, anyways.
Yeah.
I know Christian just left after 8, and he was there before Jay, so it must be at least 9 years, if not 10.
Also, you mentioned earlier, I'd love to work with Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. That never happened.
Well, that's going to be hard now, isn't it?
Okay, speaking of Eddie Guerrero, what do you think of this, the whole thing, you know, with the steroids and drugs?
I talked to him at length about that once. We got talking about, you know, painkillers and stuff. Because I've always kind of said that I don't understand. Like, I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I'm a boring guy that way. Because I'm not a partier. And I said to him, I can understand how somebody like Regal gets hooked on it because you get an injury, you want to keep working, so you take a pill just to mask the pain. Instead of getting what's causing the pain fixed, you just mask the pain and figure, I'll take care of it later, I'll take care of it later. And then one pill becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 6 with a drink, you know, 2 drinks, da-da-da. Next thing you know, you're hooked. So I can kind of understand how that can steamroll on somebody who's just trying to get a good night's sleep. I totally understand that. But I've never understood, like, somebody gets hooked on heroin or friggin' coke, just recreational. Like, hey, I'm going to go out of my way to act like a complete asshole, and I'm going to use everything I can to do that. And I've never respected that. And that's when Eddie really gave me the breakdown, how he was in the car accident, that he thought he was going to die, and they found him like 6 hours later or something. And, you know, he was still in rough shape, and he, you know, was on painkillers and got hooked on painkillers that way. I think towards the end there, before he passed, I mean, I'm imagining, because he apparently had cleaned himself up, and I think Eddie was a wonderful guy. I really got on well with him. I'm just guessing it was almost too little too late, kind of like with Hawk.
Yeah.
The Roadways, you know, I mean, he spends so much time abusing your body that it's just not good, especially at Hawk's age. Hawk wasn't a young guy anymore, and Eddie, you know, he passed the wrestler's middle age with the beatings that we take in the ring every night, regardless of how warped the industry is. You take a good beating with all those bumps, and especially Eddie's style. His body was already breaking down. So I mean, he'd worn it out with the drugs before, you know, before his body could repair itself.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know what ultimately caused the heart failure. To be honest, I don't want to know. I'd rather just remember him in a very positive light. I'd like to think he didn't fall off the wagon. I'd like to just think that ultimately he wore himself out. He had a, you know, kind of a fast-paced life. He'd gotten back with his wife. He'd beaten the drugs and everything else. So I'd like to remember him in that light than any other.
What do you think of this drug policy Vince want to invent now? Is this way too late now? Should he done earlier, before?
Well, to me, I don't have a problem with people taking steroids. It doesn't bother me. I mean, I have asthma, so I take a steroid, but it's catabolic. It breaks muscle down so I can breathe. I don't blame guys for taking it. It's like anything. It's not use, it's abuse. I think Vince's policy should be, let's push guys who can work over guys who are big. That's where the line should be drawn. You can have all the drug policies you want. Guys will find ways around it. Whether it's blood doping, whether it's catheters, whether it's getting your sister to piss in a jar. You know, the guys are going to find ways around it to make a buck. If they figure that what's going to make the buck is being a big guy. I think Vince should get the policy of, you know, anybody can go to the gym and get big if they're willing to put the time into the gym and use the right pharmaceutical equipment. I think he should be promoting the fact that not everybody can wrestle. You know, it takes a guy with certain gifts bestowed upon him by the Almighty, if that's your faith. But I mean, I think giving people the perception that, wow, like, these guys are such good athletes. You at home can't do this. That's why you pay to watch it, because holy cow, I'd love to be able to do that, but I can't. But if you look at a bodybuilder, the first time you see him, wow. But then the second time you see him, oh yeah, I saw him.
Yeah.
I think his policy should be far more into, let's get guys who can work, guys like the Bret Harts and the Shawn Michaels and the Owens. You know, to an extent, the Randy Savage. I mean, I love Randy's work. And push that. He's got enough guys in the locker room, like agents, guys like Steamboat, guys like DiBiase, who are quality people, who could influence the style of the young guys into being good workers instead of just being big guys. You're going to see less muscle tears. You're going to see guys breaking down less. Look at Superstar Graham, from all the drug abuse he did. His bones are turning to chalk. I mean, all the stuff used today is far more refined than the stuff Graham used in his day. So there's going to be less of that, but there's still going to be wear and tear. That should be the policy, is let's push a guy because he can work. Let's not push him just because he's big.
The next guy I want to talk about is the Jackal, Don Callis.
Yes.
He's Canadian as well.
Yeah, from when
did you met him in WWF or before that? Long before it. Tell us a bit, some stories with him.
Yeah.
You mentioned yesterday. Tell us a bit about the person, Don Callis.
He's a funny guy, very intelligent. And honestly, I mean, tons of people will disagree with me because they're big fans of The Rock or Boston, whatever. But the fact is, I think Don Callis, the Jackal, is hands down, without a shadow of a doubt, the best promo in the business. Simply because if you say, okay, Rock, here's a microphone, go out in front of the crowd, we need 20 minutes before the show starts to get them riled up, and we don't know what to do. We got 20 minutes, everything's gone short, our dark match has disappeared. Go. I don't know if The Rock could do it without having a few catchphrases lined up and stuff like that. As good as The Rock is, I'm a big fan of his work and of his promos. But Don, you could say, Don, we need 2 hours killed here because the ring hasn't arrived yet, and we don't want the people to leave for us for their money back. Don could get on a mic, go out there, and bitch for 2 hours, and have heat the entire time.
Yeah.
He is so gifted on the mic. He's a very intelligent guy. His only downfall is he's so smart that sometimes, this is going to sound very arrogant, but sometimes he uses $10 words on a $2 audience. People wind up going, what'd he say? And they start to tune out because they're starting to feel a little inferior.
Yeah.
The idea is to talk above your audience, but you talk above in such a way that they get their back up.
Yeah.
And start to feel above this guy. Hey, screw you, who do you think you are? And Don talks so above his audience that sometimes they tune him out. That's where Don's problem lies on the mic. That's the only problem he has. But he was a talented wrestler. He's a big Ric Flair guy. I mean, anybody who could do a lot of Ric Flair stuff from Ric's heyday has got to be good. I just think Don was an incredible talent who deserved a better position in the industry than he got. He's got a great mind for the business. Especially from a booking standpoint and a writing standpoint. I am so surprised
that he hasn't got a job in the booking.
Yeah, he's
for
such a great writer.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have storylines worked out for months in advance, crossing over with other workers so that you could, you wouldn't just have to have the same match 4 weeks in a row. Yeah, the first 2 weeks you have the same matchup, then they'd work in with other wrestlers, and ultimately would come to a head at a pay-per-view. Don's very good that way. He writes smart, engaging TV, not just TV for the sake of let's get a pop. People like him, let's see their intro. Don would use the intro and capitalize. He's a smart guy. They should hire him.
The idea of a big wrestling company based in Canada, would that be possible at the moment? Like if someone like Bret Hart
it's hard to imagine any wrestling company getting huge right now, simply because business is so down. The WWE has superseded the name wrestling. The first thing you say wrestling, somebody go, really, Hulk Hogan, Rock? Their first reaction is WWE or WWF. A lot of people,
all right.
That's their big deal. So to try and get people to change their perception of what the business is, they'd have to all of a sudden perceive this other group as big as WWE. And with the history WWE has and the mainstream success they've had with, Hogan having feature films and The Rock having feature films that actually made money.
Yeah.
And John Cena's got one coming out, and I think Kane's doing a horror film, which, holy cow. And John Cena's movie, you're not going to see it.
Nah, won't.
Actually, I probably will. I like Cena. He's a nice guy. And that's all I ever ask of anybody. I'd love to see a huge mainstream wrestling promotion, but you'd have to have it supersede the WWE's presence in the Canadian fans' mind, and I don't think that's possible right now.
What do you think of the WWE holding down people? Just they come from Ring of Honor, some other indie group, and they put them under the contract, and then holding down like a Paul London or Brian Kendrick.
I can kind of understand. Brian Kendrick, I don't know why. I lived with Brian Kendrick in Memphis. He is so talented and so funny and such an entertaining person. That guy would always be dancing around with or right near the cruiserweight belt at any given time. He is as good an athlete as Rey Mysterio, but with much more personality. I think he is phenomenal. Paul London, I've watched his work. There's no personality behind it right now. They should help him develop a personality that should go with the great work. I just think it's so stupid. If you can make money with a guy, why hold him down? I mean, Taz, as we talked yesterday.
Yeah, Taz
is a prime example. Taz's biggest crime. I mean, Taz, I never considered a great wrestler, but he was a great personality. He was Judo Austin.
Yeah.
Right? And when he first came in, he had, I mean, it's not like his shirts were good, like looking. They were wrestling shirts, but they were no better or worse than anybody else's, and they were bright orange.
Yeah.
People looked like traffic cones, but they were the top-selling merch. But his biggest crime is that he was successful somewhere else. If he was world champion in ECW, let's have all our guys beat him. Then if Spike Dudley beats him, well, then obviously Spike Dudley's one of our guys, and he beat Taz. That means everybody who beat Spike Dudley could beat Taz, which means everybody in our company could beat everybody in ECW. We're better.
Yeah.
The curtain's been pulled back. People know what's a work. Capitalize on a guy's marketability. Rhino was a prime example of a ball dropped. Here is a guy with all the talent in the world, all the intensity. When Brock Lesnar was hired and brought up, all they kept saying was, be like Rhino, be intense like Rhino, be explosive like Rhino, be mean like Rhino, do everything like Rhino. Then they pushed him to the moon, and Rhino was on jacked.
Yeah.
And metal. Rhino's big crime, he's Paul Heyman's boy.
Yeah.
He's the last guy to hold like both.
They close very
belts.
Yeah.
So if everybody beats him, well then we're all better than ECW, a company that doesn't exist anymore. Instead of taking this guy and making money on him, they're screwing him to make a point as opposed to pushing him to make a buck. It's a stupid move. I'll never fully understand why they would bother doing that, especially when there's no company to compete with. If they were worried about Taz being in WWE for a while and then beating all their guys and then going back to ECW, then yeah, I can understand, okay, well, there's a risk of him leaving and looking like he's better than all our guys. Where's Taz going to go? Where's Rhino going to go? TNA? Sorry, but they're second rate. People don't look at TNA in the same light as WWE. TNA looks Bush League. So make your money with these guys. Don't hold them back.
What do you think of the concept of the whole sports entertainment concept? You're pretty much a mixture. You like sports entertainment, you like entertain people, but also you're also a good worker. What do you think the percentage, how many percentage or much percentage should be sports entertainment and wrestling, pure wrestling? Is it?
That's I don't know, it's kind of a loaded question. I look at it, I think I love sports entertainment. I think it's a great concept for wrestling because it's not a pure sport. It's obvious it's not a pure sport because if I whip you to the ropes, you're not going to slingshot and come back at me. It's obviously worked.
Yeah.
If I punch you in the head 10 times and you don't bleed, I have the girliest punches in the world, or it's worked. The entertainment part of it is good. They've got to start looking at the entertainment portion of it as not playing to mentally challenged people. nobody cares who got Lita pregnant. Nobody cares that Kane drank and drove when he was 17 and killed Katie Vick.
Yeah.
People look at that as phony. Do you honestly, in any country in this world, I don't care what their laws are, do you honestly think you could turn on this like sports news one day and see two guys in a match fighting over custody of a child?
No, not really.
But Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio
Yeah.
climbing ladders to get a suitcase because it had the paperwork for custody of a child.
It's bullshit.
Do you honestly believe? I mean, nobody watching that thing. People want to suspend disbelief to watch wrestling, obviously, but I don't think they want to say, "Oh, come on, now that's ridiculous." I mean, the Hurricane was a superhero, but they made him so over the top and goofy that he was fun to watch because obviously he didn't have superpowers, but he was a guy who just wanted to be a superhero.
Yeah.
That was funny. But to have things like the necrophilia angle and the HLA, the hot lesbian action thing, that's just such a cheap ploy to try and get a pop. Instead of getting cheap pops, I think they've got to do things. I mean, the Austin Vince thing was great.
Yeah, the whole from the start on.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think, like, your money-making champions, okay, your best money-making champions were always the champions people live vicariously through. New York had a huge Puerto Rican fan base. Pedro Morales was a great guy to have as champion because people wanted to be like Pedro. Same with the Italian population in Bruno Sammartino. Parents wanted their kids to watch the Hulk. Parents wouldn't watch wrestling because it was violent, but hey, we can watch the Hulk because train in prayers, vitamins, be a good person, da-da-da-da. So all of a sudden, Vince took an idea and took a person and made it okay for kids to watch wrestling. Brilliant idea. So now people want to be Hulk Hogan. Steve Austin, everybody at some point in their life has wanted to punch one of their bosses in the head.
Yeah.
Austin got to do it. The Rock is simply the coolest guy who ever lived, and every guy wants to be the coolest guy who ever lived. Shawn Michaels was a guy who had fun at what he did. Bret Hart was simply the best at what he did. And was cool.
Yeah.
All these guys people wanted to live vicariously through, and that's great. That's a money-making champion. That's people identifying. But only 10% of your audience wants to be Eminem.
All right. You're referring to John Cena now.
John Cena, yeah.
All right.
John Cena, you know, he's got a great body. He's comfortable in front of the camera. He's not shy on the microphone. But he'll never be worth the money they want him to be worth until he stops being, until he stops being Ron Killings. Stops being a second-rate Eminem and starts being a first-rate John Cena. I understand he came in as John Cena, smacking Jericho in the face, and that didn't quite work. He's got people's attention now. Now it's time to, okay, let's let the rap thing subside. Instead of giving him 10 minutes to get over a 3-minute point, give him 3 minutes and have the people wanting more. And they'll tune in next week to hear more. But he gets his 3-minute point across, and then he goes on for 7 more minutes with gay jokes and stuff like that at whoever's expense he's talking about. To the point where when he leaves, people are like, okay, what's next? As opposed to, no, don't leave yet. God, I can't wait to see him again, you know?
Yeah.
The Rock always left with people wanting more, and that was brilliant. That's the entertainment part of it.
Do you think who's the number one horse in WWF right now?
Number one
horse, the
top guy?
The top guy, yeah. Like
Overall talent?
Who should be pushed most besides the politics that happened?
It's hard to say, because like I say, I haven't watched it enough to really say.
I mean, you spoke of Kurt Angle.
Kurt Angle's probably your best bet. He's got everything going for him. The only thing that he doesn't have going for him is not his fault.
Yeah.
When he came in, he is like your most legitimate guy. Olympic gold medalist, in case you didn't know. But they made such a goof out of him. Milk drinking, like when he came in, he was drinking milk, and he was talking like a dork, and wearing the badge and a little cowboy hat.
And the medal thing, you liked it?
Yeah, the medals is fine.
Yeah.
But he, let me tell you something here, Buster, and being a nerd, that people don't, as good as he is, don't take him as seriously as they should. He should simply be worth more money than the Hulk.
What about Chris Benoit?
Benoit's great. His only problem is he has no personality. He's just aggression, which is great. But it's hard for people to get behind that.
So lack of charisma.
I don't even think he's got a lack of charisma. He's got a lack of personality.
Yeah.
What he is a wrestler.
He's not Chris Benoit, the wrestler. He's a phenomenal wrestler. People look at him and see a great wrestler, but they don't identify with him as a person. They couldn't imagine sitting down and goofing around with him, watching a movie or eating dinner with him, because they're afraid he'll get up and chop the ref.
Yeah. Now when you compare
the waiter. He's whereas The Rock, you could imagine sitting there and listening to him, goofing around. You can imagine The Rock being your pal almost. And it's hard to imagine Benoit, as nice a guy as he is, a wonderful guy. But it's hard to imagine that because he doesn't have enough personality on camera. He's just, I'm here to do business, which I appreciate. But that doesn't, that's 10% of your audience is there to watch wrestling. 90% are there to be entertained.
We spoke about Chris Benoit. When you compare Chris Benoit and Bret Hart, what's the difference? You said Chris Benoit has no personality, but Bret Hart has
less personality.
I mean, Bret Hart has never had really good mic skills. I mean,
I was never a fan of his mic work.
Yeah,
he was, but the thing is, he was the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Bret almost shouldn't have a catchphrase. Because he made his business how to put this? His business was being all business. He was the best wrestler in the world. Almost like his mic skills should be secondary. His whole deal was that he was a great wrestler, and everything he did was, no pun intended, from the heart. That worked for him. His promos sounded like he was just. It was like somebody tapping him on the shoulder. What do you think about this? And he just tell you. That was where he came from. Whereas I don't know what. Maybe with Benoit, because everything is so scripted now as far as promos go. Maybe it's just Benoit's just not an actor. I bet you if you would say Chris, and you shut the camera off and say Chris, what are you going to do with Dean Malenko tonight? I bet you Chris say, what, I'm going to tear him apart. I'm going to rip off his head, punch a hole in his chest, and pull his heart out and squash it with my fingers. He'd probably come up with a good promo. But you put the camera on and say, read this, and he's like, well, let me tell you something. What I'm going to do, all of a sudden he becomes wrestler as opposed to speaking from the heart. That's where the difference lies. From ring work, I mean, Bret wasn't as explosive, but he was just smooth.
good looks, part of it.
Better looks stunning.
Better looks
poured into those tights. Thigh. No, Bret was,
the shiny pink and black tights.
Also, once again, Bret looked like a guy whose first priority was wrestling, and second priority was getting into the gym and lifting. Benoit looks like everything's wrestling is his priority. Yeah, he's so big.
Yeah.
I know Bret just looked more. I don't know. Bret looked more like a wrestler than a bodybuilder. That's good. I mean, I can't take anything away from Benoit. I think he's great in every aspect, other than everything sounds very scripted on his promos, and he doesn't show a lot of personality in the ring. But it's worked for him because they put the big belt on him. He's done well in Japan, Mexico, where he's gone. He's done well. Yeah. So who am I to judge? It's just when I think sports entertainment, I don't think of Benoit style. I think more, The Rock. That's sports entertainment. That's why he's the most electrifying man in sports entertainment apparently.
What do you think of Hulk Hogan? Is he really ever? Is it the best there is? The top notch in the wrestling industry.
Hulk will never be the best there ever was as a wrestler.
Selling man.
Even then, a lot of what he do is very cheesy. But I can't think of too many people who can read a crowd like the Hulk. The Hulk just knows when to die. He knows when to come back. He knows when to just shake it off. He knows when to fire it. He is a genius at predicting the ebb and flow of a crowd and then leading them. He's just one step ahead, so the crowd always feels they can catch up. He isn't 2 or 3 steps ahead where they're rushing to catch up and they're so busy catching up that they're not enjoying it. Everything he does is timed just perfectly. Very few people have a sense of timing and just can read a room like the Hulk. I give him all the credit. I never liked him as a kid. I thought I cheered for every heel over. I was a big heel fan. And as a kid, I hated Hulk. I couldn't stand it. Matches were always the same. It pissed me off. But looking at him in hindsight, watching old tapes and stuff, you start to realize this guy just so knew his audience. Never overexposed himself. Never stayed out there too long. never did anything that really looked so bad that people would stop believing in him. He knew his audience. I got to give him credit for that. In hindsight, he was quite good at what he did. Just he wasn't a very good wrestler. He had everything else but the actual wrestling skills.
What about the Warrior? What do you think of him? Were you a fan of him?
No, not at all. To me, he sounded like an obscene phone call from beyond the grave. He just, dispose of the bodies that have already made the sacrifice. Hulk Hogan. What the hell was that? But he was a prime example of Vince in a desperate situation. Vince was desperate to find Hulk 2.
Hulk number 2.
Yeah. Savage didn't work out as Hulk 2 because he was a great Randy Savage. He wasn't a second-rate Hulk. Warrior came out as a second-rate Hulk. Was more explosive. I give him credit for that. But people couldn't identify with him because he was a lunatic. The Hulk could be intense and crazy, but you could still warm up to him. He was still human. He was just more than human. Warrior was like subhuman. He was, should have been pacing inside a cage at a zoo. And, the paint just, it's hard for people to identify. I mean, Sting is an example of a guy who got by with the paint and everything.
Maybe it was a copy of WWF, copy of Sting, like when you compare Warrior and Sting.
Well, they both kind of came up at the same time because they used to be a tag team.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say that WWF was copying Sting or that WCW and NWA was copying WWF. So I mean, they went their separate directions. It's just Sting had a guy like Flair to bring out the best in him and to learn from him. Whereas Warrior went out there and smashed people so quick, he never really had a chance to develop. Maybe he would have been a great wrestler had he got in with a guy like Flair who would take him 45 minutes. But Warrior does 6-7 minutes because Vince knew this guy's not good. Let's not overexpose him. Let's play to his strengths. He's going to run out of gas quick, so let's have the matches be short and get him out of there. And we'll sell posters and everything else, and people, we'll sell him on his look, not his work. Sting was never as well built as Warrior, but Sting was more sold on his work and his personality than his look. His look helped because he looked different than everybody else. But he was never sold on his look until he became a pro.
Were you ever contacted by WCW?
No, actually. I got released from WWF the same day they bought WCW.
Oh, right.
So as soon as they bought WCW, they just released a ton of guys who they knew they didn't have immediate plans for, and they had all this other established TV talent to work with. So I can kind of understand why. It's just me being Canadian. They're paying extra taxes on my work permits and all that stuff. Pardon me. So me and Jason Sensation, a bunch of guys all got let go immediately because we were just more of a drain on them financially because they had no plans for us to make that money back for them.
So what do you think of the whole WCW fall down or thing with Turner is spending so much money?
Yeah, it wasn't a lack of talent. They had a lot of talented guys. It was mismanagement. I know a lot of people put a lot of heat on Vince Russo. I like Vince. I think Vince's a good guy. I think he's had a lot of good ideas. And the usual argument is that Vince had great ideas and then McMahon would rein him in and put him in the right direction. Maybe that's true. Because Vince does have a lot of crazy ideas. And he says to this day that putting the belt on David Arquette was a good idea. It was not. Yeah. I understand he wants to take. He looks at the championships like a prop, which ultimately, as a booker, you have to. But that prop also is a money-making prop, and you have to have the fans believe that belt is something special. If you devalue it, where it's not special anymore, what difference is your championship match from your opening match? Nothing. Why are all these guys fighting for a belt that nobody cares about? Put some value to it. Then when people fight for it, wow, we got to see this because somebody might win this important, status symbol. That was Vince's big problem, and that I think hurt the company because between that and Eric Bischoff hating tag teams. I like the fact that there was, tag team matches are different than singles matches. So you're not given 7 singles matches in a row. Yeah. I like that there's something to break up. I don't want to say the monotony because each match should be interesting because there should be nothing monotonous about the show. I like the idea that, like I said, things can be a little bit different. Between Bischoff, everybody trying to, instead of putting more value on something, they kept trying to devalue stuff to make other stuff seem more important. That's, I think, what handicapped WCW. And then you know, Vince was just on a run. I mean, the NWO peaked at such a huge height, but they didn't know how to follow it up. And partially because the NWO, as much as you want to say they were heels, they were baby faces. They'd come out and do the Wolfpack deal, and and we love each and every one of you, and they'd high five the fans. That's not a heel.
Yeah.
And they were so cool and had the cool merch. Who wanted to cheer for Dallas Page? Who said he was going to bang you? I don't know about you, but I don't want to be banged by Dallas Page. I don't want to watch Dallas Page bang anybody. That's a disturbing, you know, mental picture. They just didn't know how to follow things up. They we have this one event that's going to change the face of the business. Watch our pay-per-view, and it was always somebody turning heel. Sting turning heel, and 2 weeks later he's a face again because they had no follow-up. Then Goldberg turns heel, and 2 weeks later they turn him face again because they have no way to follow it up. They had great ideas to holy shit the crowd, but then no aftermath.
Then they come up with this NWO white and red fresh.
Yeah.
What was it?
There's gold and silver and burgundy and plaid. And, yeah, like it was just clinging on too long. Kind of like bringing them into WWE. Kind of like how they kept rehashing the Horsemen. And I don't care what you say, Evolution is the Horseman. And bringing in Evolution drew no more interest than here's the new Horseman with a new name. I think between the NWO and the Nation of Domination, all that stuff, I think the gang violence thing has run its course. Having a world champion with an entourage of people to protect him has run its course. Have a world champion, if he's a heel, who's a desperate world champion, desperate to hold his spot. You know, when he wins that match, when he steals the match, he hugs that belt, curls up in the fetal position, holding that belt on the floor. Because he's got the belt, he's not letting anybody take it. Have people come up to do interviews, knock on his door, and he won't answer the door because he's afraid somebody's there to steal his belt. You know, have him be the paranoid guy, always looking over his shoulder. Holy shit, who's coming to try and take my belt? I don't trust anybody. Giving the announcers a smack. You look at my belt, don't look at my belt, it's my belt. To me, that's just so much more interest and personality than, well, I'll tell you something, I've got this bodybuilder guy and this bodybuilder guy to both take share shots before I hit you with a sledgehammer. And then we do that every week for 10 months. That's weak.
Who would fit in that role, like the parallel guy at the moment in WWE?
I think Edge could pull it off. Edge could probably pull it off. I don't know why they've given him an interview segment, because as much as I like Adam, I don't think he's a good promo. No? I don't. It sounds very contrived when he's on the mic. He doesn't sound natural. If you were to Roddy Piper, we need 10 minutes, go. He had him like, he just goes mental, but it's all him. And there's no substitute for spot made. Adam's stuff just sounds contrived to me. So don't give him an interview segment. Give him something to play with. Give him something to work with. It's his ring work that's selling him, not his personality. Because what's Edge? He doesn't really have a personality. He's a long-haired guy who's dating Lita. He started off as a crazy guy. Then he became a vampire. Then he became Bill and Ted. Then he became the coolest guy who ever lived. Then he went back to being a crazy loner. He's gone full circle. He's got to do something different with that. So have him desperate to get that belt. When he does, nobody's going to touch it.
What do you think of the whole Lita, Matt Hardy, Edge, the whole story?
Personally, I can't blame them for running with it because you know the office said let's do something, and if they said no, they'd be on the bottom of the card. So they're trying to protect their spots. I understand. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and people seem to pay attention. Personally, all things being in a perfect world, it's dirty laundry that shouldn't be watched in public. I mean, that to me is a private issue, and it could have been handled with more decorum. To be honest, it's really none of my business, but I also think it's none of the fans' business. That's a personal problem between those guys. If it helps both guys' careers, great. But if it's just there to push Edge and screw Hardy over, it's not worth it. And if it's just there to push Hardy and screw Edge, it's not worth it. I think they got to find a balance where it benefits everybody for them to put so much of themselves, of their personal lives, on display.
Were you contacted by some other guys or promotions or?
Less than a week later, I'd started working in England.
In England?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about, before we go to Germany, tell us a bit about your European first your tour. Was it a long tour or was it a short trip?
I flew all the world. British superstar Tony Sinclair's been a buddy of mine for years.
Yeah.
So when I got released, made a phone call, Tony, do you know anywhere I can go? This is horse shit. So he goes, yeah, I'll make a call, I'll be right back to you. Half hour later, he calls me back. Yeah, okay, you can go to England next week if you want. Great. For a month. So I went and worked for Brian Dixon for All Star. And I've always been a huge fan of Mat wrestling and Sheamus and On the Mat, all that stuff. So it was a thrill to go and work with Johnny Saint and Steve Gray and Regal and Dave Taylor and Fit Finlay, all these guys like British superstars. I'm a big fan of that. So going on the road doing that, and then Marty Jannetty was on the tour, so I got to hang out with him, and he's a hilarious guy. Yeah, he's a great guy. I was so happy to be on a trip with him. I just met a lot of good people, which got me tours of like Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. Yeah, I love working in England. I had a great time when I'm there. I mean, working in England ultimately got me my 2 TV shows last year, and all kinds of work all over Europe, just from kind of the esteem I get from working in England. So I can't bitch about England. I enjoyed that.
So England was the first country you competed in Europe?
Yeah.
And after that?
Well, I was already in Germany before I went to WWE.
Yeah, you wrestled for Otto once.
Yeah.
What was the locker room like?
A million laughs.
Very.
Yeah, it was great.
Familiar.
Yeah, it was just the most fun. A bunch of great guys. Charging each other with cases, pulling little jokes in the ring. I'm all for ribs. I love ribs that don't affect your work or your gear, because I think those 2 things are sacred. Your match should always be strong, because people are paying to see a good match. And when guys pull ribs, just screw the match. That's screwing the show, just screwing the business, which is screwing us all out of money. So pick and choose your ribs, and don't wreck guys' gear. Stuff costs money.
Yeah.
But there's always little kind of ribs and jokes you pull in the matches, little jokes you tell and stuff to try and make people laugh. Yeah. And it was just that kind of atmosphere. Everybody was always trying to outdo each other with one-liners and jokes in the ring. But when it came time to work hard in the match, I mean, everybody was there to do it 100%.
Who remember about the room at the time?
Let's see, who do we have here? We had a guy named Rico DeCuba, we had Ulf Herman, Christian Eckstein, Carson Kretschmer, PN News, PN News, known as Cannonball Grizzly.
Eddie Steinberg?
Yeah, Eddie was there, Eddie Steinberg. Bruiser Mastino, Ice Train. Yeah, we had a lot of great locker room. Joe Kimball, who wrestles in Mexico, as Perro Russo, Russian guy. He's a good guy. And it was so much fun. And the 6 weeks in the same building every night.
Was it Heumark you wrestled? Vienna? Was it the Heumark? Or was it
Vienna? No, it wasn't Vienna. It was Hanover and Bremen.
So it was just in Germany for CWA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hanover at the Schützenplatz and Bremen at the Stadthaus.
Any stories? Old stories?
Oh, I don't know if I had. There aren't too many stories I could tell without incriminating people. Suffice to say, it was a great time. I say it was just a lot of fun. I mean, even for somebody like me who doesn't drink. I mean, you hang out after the show, and there's so many fans there who are just great, nice people. I got gifts every day. I was a heel, and I ended up having to buy a hockey bag because I had like my gym bag with all my gear. I had to buy a second bag to put my clothes in because the hockey bag I had was full of gifts from the fans. Chocolates, and CDs, and champagne.
Really?
Yeah, I got gifts every night.
No comparison to the States of Canada.
Oh, totally different, totally different. And I also got to work in rounds, which I hadn't done since South Africa in like '95. So I mean, working a different style, which is great. Otto treated me really well. Like whenever there was a press dinner, I was always at it. Personal appearances and stuff. I mean, we were treated really well. I loved it there. I wouldn't trade that experience well. I wish it still ran as long as it did. I'd love to do 6 weeks every year in each city.
What was Peter William like?
Yeah.
Was he a good guy?
Yeah. I know Peter's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and he's really sick with cancer, which he's coming back from. Thank God. Pete, I always get on well with. I can see how he can rub people wrong. I see by his personality how he can rub people the wrong way, but I've always got on really well with him. I think I got over with him largely because he loves high flyers. And I mean, really,
he really loves high flyers?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he loved Lance Storm. God, go on and on about Lance Storm. And Lance had told me that ages before I'd ever been to Germany, because we did a tour of Winnipeg, the Indian reservations. And so I thought, okay, if I'm going to get over these guys, I'm going to do some fun. So I was doing leg drops off the top and moonsaults, and Peter just loved that. So I think that's what got me over with Pete. I always got on well with Peter.
Yesterday you mentioned this one story with Wolf Herman and the flame thing. Can you tell us it again?
Oh, okay. This was long after CWA, when EWP had started, I think it was the second year of EWP, which just kind of took over for Ottawa.
Yeah.
So Christian Eckstein and Tony Sinclair were the owners of the company at the time, along with So the big deal was that they were having a cage match with Big Vito and Ulf. Ulf only came in for the one off. They did an angle to set it up, and then this is the follow through. Set him up, knock him out. He was standing up back, and he has his big torch. He usually comes out and does the Gene Simmons where he blows gas or something through the fire, and a big fireball. So Tony tells him, "Oh, listen, man, go out there, have a good match. You know, get your pops, get over with the room. You know, the crowd loves you. Just do me a favor. We just bought this tent. Please don't set the thing on fire." I said, "Yeah, no problem." He said, "No, you don't understand. You could go in, you know, you're a charismatic guy, and you kind of get lost in the moment. You got that torch in your hand, and you don't really realize where it is half the time. And I mean, we've invested a lot of money in this tent. If it goes up, we're broke. We don't have any money to buy a new tent. And I mean, our insurance is going to kill us because we put all these people at risk. We're going to probably get charged." So, you know, Ulf's getting impatient because Tony's treating him a bit like one of the retarded. So, you know, "For fuck's sake, it's okay, I got it, okay." Fills him up with gas, they play his music, as he goes steps through the curtain, he trips and almost sets the tent on fire.
Just by himself.
Yeah, just almost falls down and sets the tent on fire. Tony and I were in stitches, actually too bad, man. We were all in stitches, you friggin'. It's such of all things, the wrong time to do that, you know. I would have done it as a gag, like I would have intentionally faked a trip to scare him. But I'll didn't fake it.
What about the other German guys you met, like Eric Schwartz? What do you think of Eric Schwartz?
Was on the trip too.
Was it?
Eric's a nice guy. That was my first trip.
What do you think is Eric as a talented wrestler?
He's not bad.
Yep.
He's not bad.
What are your?
I don't think we have the same psychology. That's my mind from. I really believe in match psychology. I'm kind of the Fit Finley school where everything has to make sense a certain way. And Eric's just a more kind of modern trained talent where it's just get the noise from the crowd. Go there and do something to get it. I'm very much into the yay thing. You know, if I'm a heel, I want to go out there and have them hating my guts. So that, you know, so even if they don't love the babyface, they hate me enough that there's some passion. Whereas most guys now, especially if you watch Ring of Honor, there's no real face in heels. Whoever gets out there and does a big move, you know, and then more to ooh-ah in the crowd instead of yay booing. I think Eric more likes to ooh-ah the crowd. And I mean, people might argue with it. I mean, there's a whole company, Ring of Honor, who just became self-sufficient. Who am I to say that it's wrong if it's working?
Eric Schwartz recently had a tryout with WWE. Do you think he will end up in WWE sometimes, or they just make some tryouts and then?
I personally think that was just a great way to get publicity. I don't think they were really looking. It's possible. I think he's gonna. The way they are, they want guys 6'2" and above, 250 and above with six-pack abs. Eric's tall. He doesn't have six-pack abs. Yeah. He's gonna. I mean, the whole German thing's gonna help him because they want an international look, so that can help him. He can come up there and spread it off in German and stuff like that. But he's going to have to either change his diet or change his training regimen because they're going to expect him to be in rock hard shape. Because Paul Burchill, I just got him booked in Japan with me before he went to New York, and he went to OVW. I mean, Paul looks good. He wasn't shredded, but he had abs. You could see him and a good chest and everything. He got to Honda and said, "Drop some weight. You're looking soft." And I mean, he looked good. So if they're saying that to Paul, they're really going to get on there because he's not as aesthetically fit. He might have better women than Paul, for all I know. There are plenty of guys. Dick Murdoch, a phenomenal. You could go 90 minutes, the guy's built like Homer Simpson. But he's a phenomenal worker. But Vince's first thing is look good. Then we'll see if you wrestle. Yeah, exactly. That's a prime example. Look at male model, then we'll worry about it.
When you think of Christian Eckstein as a wrestler and promoter, there was some issues with the internet.
Yeah.
You had some with Christian Eckstein.
I didn't know if I had heat or not. That was my whole thing, is I heard that he'd been complaining about it. And I was like, really? Okay, so I just kind of let it go. But I kept hearing from different people, he's bitching about me. So I said, screw it, I'll phone him up. Because I hadn't worked for him on a couple of shows. And that kind of bothered me, because they were right in your hand open. I mean, it's not like he's paying to fly guys in from England. I live right down the street. Right? So I decided to call him on it. Same things with Bret. I'll call you on it. If there's heat, let's work it out. If we can't, we'll part amicably. I'm not looking to fist fight. If I punch you in the head, are you going to like me anymore? No, it's not going to accomplish my goal. So I called him on it. I said, I heard you bitch about it. It's like, no. It's okay. I've heard it from 4 or 5 guys. I won't stooge off who it is because I'm not that way. But I've heard it from different people, so it lends to the truth. And on top of it, I'm not booked for these shows.
But it was for the Hanover shows this year.
No, Hanover. It was right before Hanover we talked.
Yeah.
Because I was going to do he asked me to do Hanover, but I'd already accepted bookings. Because I talked to him and he said Hanover might not even be happening because the government was giving him a lot of heat. It's very hard to run a show in Germany.
I think that was kind of strict. Was it true, or was it just?
Well, he's been on the level. I mean, I came in the last night of the Hanover trip and did a run-in, which was a big surprise. Got a great pop too. And then the next day, we did a show at a whorehouse.
Ah, yeah. That was this what was it called? Pasha?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Which is something for the book. If I ever decide to write or read or color a book, that's one for the book. And I wrestled in a whorehouse. The most interesting place I wrestled before that was a nudist colony. So the fact that I've been in a nudist colony and a whorehouse, all I got to do is a porn set, and I think I pretty much hit the trifecta of filth.
What was the whorehouse like?
A strip joint.
Yeah.
It was a strip joint, and then the whorehouse was like right next door. It was a high-end place. I mean, they had a cafeteria that gave us great steaks. They had good food. I was really surprised. And they took us on like a walking tour. We saw the stuff. We read the menu of things you can get girls to do with you. I didn't get a coupon, and it's just probably not my way. I don't know if I don't know how comfortable I'd be. Like when I met Jasmine Sinclair backstage. Yeah. In the WWE show, Meanie and I are pals. So I think he left her with me because he knows I'm not going to make a play for his girl. Whereas most of the guys may be looking at her as a sure thing. But I still found it intimidating to hang out with a woman who's been with more women than me. It's just intimidating. I don't know what it is. It's just emasculating for me. But it's the same principle there. I'm sure these girls will probably get paid to do threesomes. Even with a woman who's been with more women than me. I don't know, especially if she does it for a living. I don't know whether it's just me being a prude, but nobody got a freebie that night as far as I know.
So no more heat with Christian Eckstein?
No, we talked it out. He said everything was cool, and I worked with him since, and we bullshitted on the phone and stuff.
So you will be back at WP?
Yeah, I hope to go back. Because I did a show in Moscow with him. I'm hoping to go back to Russia. I'd love to do that. Russia was great. Yeah. Got to go see Lenin's tomb, Red Square, and all that shit. It was cool.
What do you think of Austria as a wrestling as a place? You've had some matches for RWA for Slash Power. What do you think of the concept of Slash? Bring wrestling more into the old traditional catch wrestling style with
this is going to sound so like I'm just trying to suck up everybody, but I like all styles of wrestling simply because no matter where you go, being able to adapt, I think is key for a wrestler. If you can only do one style, you're not a real wrestler. I think you should be able to adapt to your audience, read your audience, and play off them. I like the traditional style. I like the very strict line between babyface and heel. I also like going to Japan where it's just two guys fighting it out and hopefully you kind of get over and maybe you get some heat, maybe you get a pop. I like going with the traditional style. It's fun. It's real easy too. I mean, once you establish face and heel, you can do almost nothing if you want to. Which I always end up working really hard just because that's my way. I look at it. There's so many guys who dig ditches for a living, 8 hours a day, or cops or firemen who put their lives on the line 8 hours a day, but never get applause. Don't make what I make. Don't get to travel the way I get to travel and see the things I get to see. For me to bitch about working hard for 15, 20 minutes a day, it's kind of like slapping them in the face. You know, it's my duty almost to go out there and bust my ass for 15 minutes. Especially, if somebody's paid their money to watch me, I should give them a show. So, I mean, if Slash wants that style, I'm glad to say that I can adapt to that style and work my ass off in that style for him and get over for him. And then the next night I can go, the next day I can go to Hanover, do more of their style. Then I go to England, do more of their style. And then off I go to Japan and do that style. You know, I like being able to adapt and change things up. You learn more, you grow more as a worker, and I think as a person just by seeing different things and learning different things all the time.
Your top babyface now in FWA?
Yeah, top heavyweight. I wouldn't say top heavyweight. Babyface.
I wonder why they didn't contact you earlier, because FWA on shows since I think 98, 99. And you've been in Europe for 3 or 4 years now?
Yeah.
Why did they...
I worked for them once, it was on my birthday actually. I did 4 shows over my birthday weekend. Not this past September before. And got over with them. It just kind of worked out weird. Maybe it's possible that people thought it was exclusive to Brian Dixon or something. I don't know. Johnny Storm had been bugging me to call that through way forever, but I never really called somebody. It was just a lack of me being proactive. But I know I've become pals with Alex Shane since. I talk to him on the phone all the time. He's a great guy. And now, like I say, they brought me in as a heel, but then Doug Williams turned heel. Alex already is a heel. They needed a heavyweight babyface, and since I did the TV shows, it was right place, right time for me.
The audience in Britain is far more numbers in Britain than in Germany or Austria. I think the tradition, the advertising wrestling more better in Britain, or is it just because it's a past, a well-known past?
I think that's part of it. I think the history in England is a big portion of it. I think also it's easier to run a show in England. The shows are so far in between in Germany because the government is so hard on you guys. In Germany, I assume Austria is similar. It's very expensive to run a show. I mean, you spend a fortune before you've sold one ticket. Whereas England, I mean, just about anybody can run a show at any given time. Just the laws are very loose there. So there's more of a market there. You can, without, nobody's got TV, but I mean, you can see Johnny Storm working for FCW on Monday, then Tuesday for All Star, and then Wednesday for Thursday for another group, Friday for guys can still get good word of mouth going because they don't do one show and then it's 9 months till the next show. So there's always kind of wrestling talk going around because there's always wrestling going on somewhere in England. Whereas in Germany it's just less, and Austria I've seen as well. There's just less going on, so there's less word of mouth. And if there's less word of mouth, it doesn't seem as interesting because everybody wants to be on everybody's lips.
I think the time when WWF went to major television, Sky Television, in the mid-80s, what was the reason they killed the European scene? Did they just miss the TV spot? I mean, European wrestling would have been television as well. I mean, if they had the connection with TV stations.
They did have a connection with TV stations. I think the problem was that Vince has such high production values. Nobody took the time, except for Paul Heyman, nobody took the time to underproduce a show. I know it's an odd term, but when WWE came in, I mean, WWF at the time, I mean, they have lights and they have explosions and they have everything going on. And it's like a rock concert. Jericho's actually phenomenal. Gangrel's when he comes through the Ring of Fire. That was really interesting. to sell that to the people, say we are the major leagues. By the way, Hulk Hogan's on every interview show you can watch, and Hulk Hogan's got a cartoon show, and Hulk Hogan's doing movies, and we're getting Randy Savage to the same. We're doing this with Osborne and this with Undertaker, and they're just everywhere. So all of a sudden, just have guys walk out of a curtain in a costume. All of a sudden, it seems very Bush League because they just didn't have the money to compete with WWE. Most guys who run wrestling promotions in England usually have another job, and they're paying for their wrestling promotion from another job. So they're very tight with their money. And also you get what you pay for too. If you're going to spend money on big talent, usually your big talent is quite good. They got big for a reason. Whereas your guys who you're getting for 20 quid, 50 quid, are guys who, this isn't their full-time job because, I hate to say this because hopefully it's not the case for everybody, but they're not good enough to warrant working full time. They're not good enough to get a contract. And maybe they just need experience. Maybe they just need a company that'll pay them enough to do it. But since they haven't had that, everything looks second rate. Guys aren't as big. They aren't as pretty. They aren't as great gimmicks. They don't have the great mainstream appeal. So Vince, just the overall image of the company, like I said earlier, it supersedes the name wrestling is now World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Entertainment, which really kind of kicked Vince in the ass because he superseded the name wrestling with World Wrestling Federation, then had to change it. But that's what I think really kicked Britain in the nuts.
Just rate the top European world is at the moment. Who you are in Europe so far? I mean, in Europe so far,
Doug Williams would probably be technically one of your best. He's just a great technical guy. He isn't as charismatic as a WWE type character, but just for ring work and ring presence, he's phenomenal.
You think that he will end up someday in WWE?
I don't think he wants to. I think he's happy in Japan.
Really?
Yeah. Johnny Storm is such an entertaining cat. I think he's one of the best. Same with Jody Fleisch. I just find Johnny Storm, he's Jody Fleisch and then personality on top of it. So Jody Fleisch is a good personality, but Johnny Storm is just so entertaining.
His character is more like
you'd watch him even if he didn't do all the flips, just because he's a funny guy. A guy you don't hear a lot of is a guy who was born too late. It's James Mason.
James Mason, yeah.
He is great. If he had been born 15 years earlier, he would have been the next Danny Collins for British wrestling.
Yeah.
He's great. He can babyface great, he can heel great. Good high flag, good personality, good everything. The only thing he doesn't really have is a great body.
Yeah.
But for so much talent and for what the industry is right now, he doesn't need it. I can understand why he's spending 2 hours a day, 7 days a week in a gym, trying to look phenomenal when he's getting the same reaction when he doesn't. He can actually spend time with his girl or spend time with the movies or doing whatever he wants to do. Because he really doesn't have any desire to go beyond British wrestling. Maybe some stuff in Japan or whatever. But he's comfortable in wrestling in Britain. And really, I can see why a lot of guys, Alex Shelley is a prime example. I told my wrestler James Mason, really? Wrestler James Mason? He was in awe. I was like, yeah, I've wrestled James like 1 million times. James is great. But I can see why people come to England and look forward to wrestling a guy like James. You'd never hear anybody complain about wrestling James. They complain about wrestling me, because I'll take you on a marathon for 45 minutes. James is happy doing 5 minutes, happy doing 25, happy doing 85. He'll do whatever because he's just a real easygoing cat. And he's just a real talent. Everybody loves working with James. There's a reason he's so good.
Yeah. The German and Austrian guys.
The big problem with Germany and Austria is that most guys are backyard trained.
Yeah.
There's just a serious lack of professional training. Most of the guys who do the training are guys who taught themselves. So they've taught themselves mistakes and they're teaching their mistakes to other guys. And they're teaching their mistakes to other guys. It's not a lack of ability, it's a lack of channeled ability. There are some guys who aren't bad and have real potential, but you'll find that the ones who get out of Germany and get out of Austria and wrestle in other areas are the ones who really improve simply because they're wrestling guys who maybe have been trained well and are helping them get over hurdles and mistakes they don't realize they're making.
What do you think of Chris Bambi or Michael Cole?
They're good guys. I've wrestled both of them. Bambi has a real knack for getting over the crowd. Crowd just seem to to identify with them, whether it's a face or a heel. They're on board. Kovac works hard. The crowd don't seem to identify as strongly with Kovac. I think part and parcel of the problem is that he'll work in two towns that are 20 miles apart. And in one town he's a face and one town he's a heel. So the fans go to both shows. And they never know how to take it. There's no consistency in the way people book him. But that's kind of out of his hands. He the promoter doesn't want to do it. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. You're paying me. I'll do what you want. But that could be part and parcel of the problem with him not quite getting over the way he should.
What do you think of West Side Extreme Wrestling? Have you been to once or twice?
A few times, yeah.
A few times?
Great fans.
The crowd is awesome.
The crowd is awesome. I mean, you can do as little or as much as you want. The crowd are enthusiastic and appreciative. I love working for those guys. I mean, I never had to chase it for a dime.
Isn't the concept dangerous when they stand so close to the apron?
It is. But by the same token, the crowd is so into it. For lack of a better term, they're so involved. You know, they're that much closer, they're that much more into it. I mean, they feel a part of the match. And in turn, I mean, when something big happens, they're a part of it, you know? They're not watching a match, they're involved in a match. They make it interactive. Which ultimately I've always told when I'm teaching guys, like I run wrestling clinics and stuff like that. If a fan wants to watch wrestling, DVD or Sky, if they want to be involved with wrestling, they go to a show, they go live. Because they want to cheer, they want to boo, they want to make an ass of themselves, or they want to, make an ass of the guy in the ring. They want to be involved. And if you're going to wrestle mostly independent stuff, you're not going to be on TV, so make it interactive. That's what the people who show up to a live show want, interaction.
You think of German Stampede Wrestling, you competed, you were wrestling with Rhino, the body. Yeah. What was the show like?
Good.
Was it a good show?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I wrestled Rhino, and then I did a battle royal. I beat Rhino, I won the battle royal. And then
was it just that?
And then I went to challenge Carino because I'm going to wrestle Carino, I think, in April at their big International Impact show.
What's the concept like from Ingo, from German Stampede Wrestling? Is he similar? Fans say that he's a little Vince McMahon of Germany, like
I think every promoter wants to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say the same thing about Alex Shane. Anybody who's in control is going to have some kind of naysayer because everybody wants to be in control. You got a million armchair experts. Everybody knows how to run a promotion. Everybody knows how to run a soccer team. Everybody knows how to run a hockey team. But only a few guys actually do this for a living. Ingo has never been a problem with me. Like when I talk to Ingo about stuff, if I don't agree with something he's doing, I'll tell him and I'll tell him why. I don't give him these reasons. Here's why it makes sense. Here's why it doesn't make sense. Here's how we should do it. And more times than not, it's not just get over with me just because I'm right and everybody else is wrong. But it seems to work out that way. But he's open to new ideas or to taking an idea and not just here's the idea, do it. But here's the idea, we can make it better with this. And he's all into kind of, he wants to have the best show possible, and he's willing to listen to ideas to make it that way.
Was there some promoter or some angle in Europe that you didn't really like, or just cut him off and say, no, I don't do this, I don't make the job for this one or this person?
No.
When you just a promoter you didn't really get along with? Is there anyone?
Well, I did have a difference of opinion when I was working with Ingo once. He was doing a match with me and Eric, and he was going to do the double switch. Eric turns heel, I turn face. Same match. And it wasn't right. I stand by that. We did it. I kept Ingo happy. But I don't agree with it. I think it was done wrong. I think he watched the tape of the Austin Bret double switch and just wanted that finish.
All right.
And truthfully, the match wasn't that great. Because the turn wasn't necessary. The double turn wasn't necessary. It wasn't done at the right time. I was already getting a babyface pop. And he was already kind of turning heel. The switch has to be holy cow as opposed to, yeah, we can kind of see that coming. So to throw it in, there was no surprise. That was a wasted double switch. It should have just been me going out there as a face, him going out there as a heel. And running with it, having him frustrated that people are booing him. And me, I told you so, you people, I was right all along, come on. And maintaining the integrity of my character while he breaks down. And me, yeah, I told you so. You know, you people, you know, I was right all along. Come on. I'm maintaining the integrity of my character while he, you know, he like breaks down. So I mean that was where I had a problem with that. I've never argued about doing a job, even when I thought it was the wrong move.
There was some Dutch promotion. You wrote in your journal. There was some guy like the name of Destructo.
Destructo, yes.
What was the thing? Tell us about this whole show. I mean, you had to lay down for Destructo as well.
Yeah.
And what do you think of the being a Dutch promoter? I mean,
he was like
just a backyard, I mean, to be honest.
No, actually, they drew a good house. I mean, the promotion wasn't bad. FCW and Bass was the guy. He said, you know, we need you to come in. And, you know, we want to use you like on every show and da 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 da. And we talked to him. I said, okay. And then when I got there, he said, okay, well, it's going to be you and Destructo, and we want Destructo to kind of slide over because after the match, he's going to propose to his girl in the ring. Are you serious? He's like, yeah. I said, well, this is pointless. I said, if you're going to bring me in for every show, you don't bring me in losing.
Yeah, for the first match.
Because then the follow-ups are, oh, that's the guy who lost that stuff. You bring me in on a hot streak and then I lose when it matters. If you're paying money to bring me in, get the most value out of me. If you're going to pay for me to come in live, I'm only coming in once, then fine. We're putting whoever over on me because you're elevating them. But to bring me in and devalue me, I said that's not a great idea if you plan on bringing me back.
Yeah.
He's like, no, he goes, please, you know, I really want to, you know, get Destructo over. And I got in with Destructo, and he's a big skinny fat kid. I mean, I like Destructo. He's a nice guy, and apparently he's quite strong.
Does he tell? I mean,
yeah,
he has no wrestling background or something.
Not that I could see.
Not really.
I mean, he knows a couple of moves, but I mean, he didn't really listen to the program. We're on different pages on the program, and we do a spot and screw up and say, okay, let's do it again. And we don't. You mess up a spot and then do it again. It's just the rule because it looks fake. Yeah. If you try a spot and it fucks up and you do it again, people go, oh, well, shit, that's what they meant to do. You fucked up, you fucked up, you fucked up. So, I mean, there was times where that happened, a few times, and I ended up putting Destructo over. And I made some jokes on the internet about it, saying, yeah, it's a fucking bad match. And it, you know, I also came back in my next column and said, because Destructo sent me a message, you know, saying, saying that basically he, you know, didn't realize I didn't like him, and, you know,
he thought you were bad mouthing him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I put a message in there because I didn't mean to badmouth him. I sent him a message back saying, you know, look. And I put the message on the newswire. I didn't hide behind a friggin' secret email. Don't tell anybody I said I'm sorry. You know, I came out and said, you know, sorry if that offended you, but here's why I said what I said. I said, you're called Destructive, but you don't look scary. You don't look strong. You got a big gut and a fat ass. And you got skinny arms and narrow shoulders. You're built like a mouse. And for you to tell everybody that you're this big, strong guy looks fake. Even if you are the strongest guy in the world, you're going to have to go there and prove that strength because you don't look a guy like Ted Arcidi. You can call him destructive, people say, shit, yeah, but he didn't look like a destructive. That was my point. But because I have kind of a sarcastic nature about me, I guess it came out like I was bad enough. I didn't mean to. So I just put out my column. I didn't mean to, and I wished him and his new wife well. And I find the name Destructive. This sounds like a bad guy in Spider-Man. So I mean, I did make jokes about that. I made jokes to him like that. So if he's upset about that, he can't be bitching that I put on the internet because shit, I told him to his face. That's a funny name, guy.
Did they bring you back some?
Yeah.
To FCW?
Yeah.
And what was the match like?
I did a tag team match against like a gay tag team, Baz and his brother.
Baz and Matt from
Yeah, me and I forget who it was against those two guys.
What do you think of FCW as a promotion of talents?
Well, I mean, all indie talent is hit and miss. I mean, you're not. If everybody on the show is phenomenal, it's probably going to be more than a once every 6 months promotion. You know, there's some guys who are great. There's some guys who need to learn. And I mean, that's what indie shows are for. So these guys can develop and learn and get better each time. I enjoyed working for him. I mean, I never chased him for a cent. Baz had me agent a bunch of the matches, so I went and talked to a bunch of the guys about what to do in the matches and how to tighten things up and get points across. Because you wind up seeing like 17 nut shots a match, or per match, and you see 9 matches. After the second time, people are like, okay, I've seen a nut shot now. You're not going to get that. Ooh, you get it once a show, and you get hit in the nuts. I mean, any guy watching this DVD, you understand, you've all been hit at least once. The guy who's taking the dice at least once. You get hit in the nuts. It hurts for like a week. So to get hit in the nuts at the 5-minute mark in the match, and then at the 15-minute mark, be firing back and not at least be uncomfortable, is fake. Yeah. So I tried to eliminate nut shots and make them matter. To me, that's one thing that Mexico does well. A nut shot's a disqualification. The guys sell that. They sell that, to the hospital. That's smart because that's something any guy in the audience can empathize with.
Another promotion you worked for is the Swiss Wrestling Federation. I think you worked for them 2 or 3 times. What do you think of the promotion of Cessa and Trumauer and the show On Fire? Shortly after was the promotion went bankrupt. Yeah. So what do you think your whole impression of the SW?
Fabio was a great guy. He treated me nothing but well. The night of the show, he took a financial bath on that. He came up to me all panicked. He's like, listen, man, I don't have the cash on me, but I'll forward the money into your bank account. And I took a leap of faith and said, all right, if I don't get it, because it was a good payday that he offered me. If I don't get it, we got a problem, and I don't want to have a problem because I like you. And sure enough, I had that money in my account. He was true to his word with me. That's really the only thing I can go by.
The money was on your account within a week or
bam,
after the show.
Yeah. As soon as he had it, it was on my account. So God bless him. I can't bitch about doing business with him. My problem with the show is I told him it was too top heavy. I said he spent so much money bringing in so many guys with so many playing fields and high wages. Anybody that was going to show, okay, the minute you say, okay, I've got freaking AJ Styles and Abyss on the show. Anybody who'd show up for those two would show up regardless if they had Dallas Page and all these other guys on the show. To just have those other guys on the show is just upping your bills. And you're not going to have guys say, well, I'm not going to show up for AJ Styles. I'm not going to show up for this. But Disco Inferno's here, so I'll go see him. Like he paid for Scott D'Amore to come in, who wasn't even on the show. They put him in as a last-minute thing as a manager. And then
he even paid him for it.
He paid him to come in just as a supervisor, which he didn't need. So he was going out of pocket because he really expected to get a return on his money. And it's nice to see the guy had that kind of faith in his promotion. But I told him, Scott told him, everybody told him, and Scott told him, you shouldn't be paying to fly me. The show was simply too top heavy. And when it was too top heavy, he took his financial back. Unfortunately, he didn't go bankrupt.
Speaking of Disco Inferno, down there was Page, the Swiss Wrestling Federation. They brought in these big stars. What do you think of the idea of bringing names like EVP, who obviously got 10,000 euros?
I think it was, Dallas Page also played off his desperation. He was supposed to have Jeff there. He was a piece of shit. But to his credit, I was there when Scott got the call, but basically, he got his Jeff's wife had problems with cancer in the past. I guess the cancer had reappeared. So when it reappeared, he called up and canceled the gig so he could stay with his wife. As much as I disagree with everything Jeff does, I can't disagree with that. So he needed a last-minute star to work with Thing there in the main. Who did Dallas work with?
Jared was playing at the final match. It was Jared DDP. It was
Who did Dallas end up with?
Dallas against Disco was the match.
Yes.
Dallas Disco Inferno.
That's right. It was supposed to be Dallas now.
Pretty sensitive.
Yeah.
No story or key to it down.
Yeah. But it was supposed to be Jeff and somebody else.
Wasn't it Jeff against DDP?
No, because then they ended up getting Dallas at the last minute, putting him in the main.
Nash?
Against
Kevin
Jeff.
Nash?
Might have been.
Yeah, Kevin Nash.
I know Dallas was a last minute thing. Because originally they were pushing to have me at Dallas. But Dallas is like, well, you know, I only work with a handful of guys because I've been hurt, and so that he used disco because he worked disco like a million times. Which, hey, if he's making that kind of money off the show, he can pull whatever he wants. So I don't mind. I think it's a good idea to bring in names every now and again to legitimize your local talent. But he brought in Dallas to be disco. How did that in any way elevate his local talent? He could have had any one of his guys, a top guy, beat Dallas. That would have legitimized his guy, and he wouldn't have to pay $10,000 to bring in Dallas again to defend or lose the belt. Dallas leaves with a belt. Dallas leaves with a championship. Now you've got another. Next time you want to show, you've got to consider that amount of money to bring him back to work again, and you know
that might never happen because.
Right. Well, he already said he'll only work with a handful of guys. So now you got to bring back in Chris Kanyon, let's say, because he's Dallas's buddy. Yeah. So now you got to have Dallas lose the belt to Chris Kanyon. But Chris Canyon's charging a good amount of money because Dallas only needs a couple of guys, and Kanyon knows this. So now Canyon's worth a ton of money. Now you've got to have Kanyon lose to somebody else. Now you wound up having several shows of a huge budget to try and move the belt around to somebody that you like.
Or they bring him in and then they screw him over tile like they did
with Bret and all that.
I mean, they can do it, but
they can. But then word gets around the industry.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Dallas is telling all his buddies, look, you know, this guy screwed me over, yada, yada, yada. Well, now, Cessa wants to book somebody else to come in, wants to book Rhino to come in. Rhino said, well, you know what, I heard Dallas say that you screwed him over. I need certain guarantees. I need more money.
Yeah.
You know, now all of a sudden, he's upped his payday on every guy who comes in. Or Rhino says, screw you, I won't do it. Now all of a sudden, he can't get certain guys to come in to work with his guys and legitimize the salary. It's better to be above board, I think, regardless. You know, so you be straight. Have one of your locals go over Dallas. Holy cow. Plus, I mean, once people pay to see Dallas once, it's not WCW. It's SWF. Once you pay to see Dallas, that was your novelty. The same crowd is not going to pay to see Dallas again. They've already bought his Dallas picture. They've already got the Dallas autograph. They've already shaken hands with Dallas. He did everything. Did all the press work, did all the radio interviews, did everything he could to make that show a success. But he did it. It's over. Now you need a new name, a new face to kind of, oh my God, the crowd, I can't believe he's here.
So they had 250 people in the crowd. They made a loss about, I think, 80,000 euros, or was it francs? I mean, I think it was francs, but it's
Francs, yeah.
Francs would be 40,000 euros, I think.
Absurd, isn't it?
And they are bankrupt now. Yeah. And Cessa probably has lawsuits against him because he still owns companies for advertising and stuff, money. You think the wrestling in Switzerland, because it has no really a tradition, was that the reason that they don't really draw good crowd numbers?
They don't have TV.
Yeah, it's just
they don't have TV, so you can have a guy who's the biggest star. I mean, I could go right now and book the biggest star in Nigeria for you. Be the #1 Nigerian wrestler in the world to come here and work for your promotion. Anyone care? No, because we don't see Nigerian wrestling. I think Fabio had to make an effort to build up his own Swiss guys. I told him when he asked me about booking stuff, I said, you have to make the SWF seem like the center of the universe. Make it look like guys come in from all over the world to be a part of SWF because they don't want to be on the outside. They want to be on the inside, and this is the inside. Make the fans feel they're part of something special. Paul Heyman never had people chanting Tommy, Tommy for Tommy Dreamer. They all chanted ECW. They were loyal to the brand. Make the fans loyal to the brand.
You're a champion of a Japanese promotion.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about this Japanese joint, how it came by that you competed for those.
I was working for TNA and walking around the locker room, and a guy named Ryuma Go used to wrestle as Ninja Go and Mr. Go and all that stuff. Real nice guy. He was backstage, suit and tie and everything, and I just pull up. So I see this guy standing backstage in his suit and tie, and nobody was saying anything. That's when everyone was hi, and Joe Legend shook his hand. Said, hi, Ryuma Go, nice to meet you. And I walked away. but I just decided to play. But when I did that, it sparks interest to look. And I guess part of my thing is that I got the long hair and the beard, so a lot of people look at me in a Bruiser Brody type light. Then he saw me do a tag match, and I did an ass kick in the match. I forget who I beat. I think it was CM Punk. I beat the shit out of him. Working to beat the shit. I didn't. No heat between me and Punk. In the match, when it was time for me to be aggressive, I was all over him. And go love it. So I came to the back afterwards. He says, "I got a new promotion in Japan. We're going to start up. I'd really like you to be a part of it." I was like, "Great." He said, "I'm going out for dinner tonight. Me and Raven and Eric Watts are going for sushi. You want to come?" I'm like, sounds like a free meal. Okay, I'm there. I'm cheap. So we went to dinner, and I ended up talking to Eric the whole night, and Raven was talking to Go. Then Raven and Eric left together, I think, because they were riding the same car. And then me and Go sat there and talked for 2 hours.
Was he the main man in charge for?
Well, he's the main booker.
Yeah, he's a PPW.
Well, the promotion is called Wrestle Aid Project because part of the proceeds go to charity. But the promotion's championship is Pan Pacific Wrestling. So then we ended up going to some nightclub. Me, him, and this photographer guy I had with him. And, he had a few friggin' drinks, and I had a few pops, and he made fun of me for not drinking beer. But we had a few laughs. And like I said, I'm a big fan of Japanese wrestling. With the karate and all, I've always had kind of interest in Japanese culture, and I like sumo and shoot fighting, and a lot of similar interests. So we ended up bullshitting for hours. And after that, we just kept in touch. And next thing you know, I'm getting emails from him and from Setamoto, who's the money guy. And they did a show in Calgary. They brought me in, let me pick my opponent. I got my buddy Cheech booked. Chichi Cruz. Best wrestler you never heard of.
I never saw him.
He's phenomenal. He's great.
Is he real Latin?
No, he's from Winnipeg. The gimmick is he's from East LA. But he's just a great wrestler. So I did a match with Robbie Rage. I guess his wrestling name. Yeah, something like that. In Calgary to set up, and Cheech beat a guy there, and that set up our match. So they had kind of a pretext in Calgary to push the Japanese press when we got to Japan. And I wrestled Cheech in the main event of the first Wrestle Aid show, which was at a different Iraqi stadium, which is where Noah's home base is. And then every other month I go to Japan, and they eventually put the belt on me. I won a tournament where I beat Pianus and Burger Steel in 2 different matches, and they be the champ. So now I defend the belt everywhere.
So what do you think of guys like Cannibal Grizzly?
Cannibal Grizzly is probably the best super heavyweight in the business. I mean, he can do topes and drop kicks as much as he can do the big man stuff. He's an excellent talent, a good mind for the game. Had a string of bad luck, which kind of screwed him. But he's a good man, and I was proud to be able to get him booked because, I mean, he did not make me look bad. Some guys you book and then they go in there and they totally shit the bed. You're like, oh man, why did I book this guy in the office? It's bad. It never happens when I get Grizz booked anywhere. They're always like, thank you, he's so good.
Yeah, the matches were always good.
Yeah, it's hard to have a bad match with Grizz. He's really good.
So then you went to TNA.
Yep.
Hot topic.
Heated topic.
Who contacted you first? Who was the person that contacted you?
I did the WWE tours. We did a WWE tour of Europe. We did England, Ireland, Scotland, and Switzerland.
Switzerland, right?
Yeah. We did a pay-per-view out of Scotland. Jeff came in to do an NWA title match with Nathan Jones, and he watched the match with me and Mike Sanders, which was voted match of the tour and match of the night every night.
Mike Sanders versus
me.
You.
Yeah. Maybe you too. Might have been earlier than that. I don't know. So we worked. We had match of the night every night as voted by the locker room, and match of the tour voted on the wall. And I was really proud of that. And Jeff saw the match and said, "Oh, it's so good. We need to have guys like you on board TNA. It's great. Yada yada." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And he said, "Get in contact with me in the new year." The WWE tour ended in December. So he says, "Beginning of the year, call me. Here's my number." So I called him. Of course, never got a hold of him. TNA office is like, "Yeah, Jeff's really high and you want to use you, yada yada yada." I'm like, "Okay." Then Puerto Rico calls me. I had to do it. "We want to use you down in Puerto Rico." I said, "I got to give TNA right of first refusal. They're the ones who contacted me first." So TNA jerks me around. I finally said, "Look, guys, if you can't offer me a full spot, tell me and I'll go to Puerto Rico. Don't leave me hanging. Don't leave them hanging. It's unprofessional." They said, "You know what? If you can get full-time work in Puerto Rico, do it for now. and then we'll set things up so you can come in strong. So okay. So I go to Puerto Rico, love it. I made a mistake leaving. I adored Puerto Rico. It's great.
Good payday as well?
Good payday, good everything. It was wonderful to me. Can't stress how good I'd ever been in Puerto Rico. Can't stress it enough. Fantastic. I finished up there and went to Australia and New Zealand for WWA again. Saw Jeff. And okay, as soon as you're done, you're coming right to the States. So I left from New Zealand, went right to Detroit. Stayed at Scott Moore's place. He and I have been buddies for years. And started going down to TNA. And started off strong and then had them handicap me ever since.
Where are you living at the time?
I lived in Windsor, which is right across the river from Detroit.
Near Detroit.
Well, Detroit's in the States. Windsor's on the Canadian side of the border.
So the first matches you had in TNA were
me jumping and kicking the crap out of Jeff. In hindsight, I should have done it for real. I should have beaten the life out of him. He's a coward and a punk. He wouldn't have fought back.
Yeah.
And if he did, he couldn't do any damage because he's a girl.
Yeah, he's a pussy.
He is, completely.
So tell us a bit of the background. How the heat came by. Was it just because
it started off,
he wasn't honest enough to...
No, he's a liar.
He's a liar.
Yeah. He says he wants to do this program with me where, I'm coming in as Vince's, Russo's hitman. I'm going to come in.
That was the first idea.
Yeah. And what I love is they weren't sure what name to use for me. They wanted to change my name.
From Joey Legend
to something else. Yeah. And I said to Scott, I said, well, who wants to change the name? He says, well, Glenn Gilberti, he says that Legend is kind of gimmicky. I said, you're telling me Disco Inferno is telling me my name's too fucking gimmicky. That's horseshit. So eventually they settle on just calling me Legend, which is cool. So I go down there and I do a run and beat up Jeff. And then the next week, I think I beat him again. But this time I beat him in a match. The first one was just a run-in and ass kicking. The second one was a proper match. Now the deal is Jeff would come up to me hours before the show. And to his credit, maybe he was busy. He looked like he was busy. He'd say, okay, we've got 20 minutes. Yeah. Here's how we have to do the finish. I'll be back in 20, tell me what I'm doing. And he'd disappear, come back in an hour. What are we doing? And I'd give him this whole match. Okay, great. And maybe he changed one or two things for himself. But other than that, I came up with the matches. And so he'd come up to me, and this is what I want. So, okay, it's 20 minutes, da-da-da-da-da. I come up with a match for us. We're semi-main event. So it gets almost to match time. We're 5 minutes before the bell. Jeff's like, and this is the match where I'm winning. Now the idea is, Jeff's gonna make his big comeback on me. Vince Russo comes up, gets up on the apron while Jeff and the ref are busy with Vince. I pick up the bat over Jeff's head. 1, 2, 3. I beat him. I'm so smart. And it sets up a return with a guitar on one pole and a bat on the other. Okay, that'll do. So I have the whole match lined up for him. I go to the production guys because they like this, because most guys do their match and then the cameraman gotta chase you. But I can say, okay, this is what we're doing. We're gonna fight here and we're gonna do this and this. And I get them so they can get the best camera shots possible to make the most out of the video production of this thing. So I get all arranged. 5 minutes before the match, Jeff says, gotta change the match. Why? Does somebody else do our finish? Who else is using fucking bad? He says, no, the show's running long, so we gotta cut some time. So we had 15 or 20, whatever the time was. I said, what do we got, like 10? He goes, 3. Wow. I go, eat a bowl. 3 minutes. I said, that's impossible. You can't get me over in 3 minutes. I said, there's no heat there. He says, don't worry, we'll just start from the comeback. I'll just kick your ass right out of the gate, and then Vince will throw you the bat, you hit me. I said, there's no heat on me. I said, that's a heat on Vince. I said, really? You could be fighting the ref, and the ref hits you. You can get beat by anybody like this. This doesn't do anything for us, and this doesn't do anything to set up our return. This is horseshit. Tell the main event they've got to cut a little bit of time too. No, we can't. Trust me. We'll make up the heat next week. I promise. Next week when Jeff and I do the gimmick match and I put Jeff over. It's all right. Well, if that's what you want, it's what you want. So we go into it exactly as Jeff says, and of course there's no heat on me. Vince has all the heat, and I got nothing. We come to the back. Production guy comes up and he's screaming, "What the fuck was that? We had the cameras ready. We had everything going. 20 minutes. You guys started to come back and go home at 3. What the fuck was that?
So they didn't even know it.
They didn't even tell production. So I said, well, Jeff said the show was running long. We had to cut the match short. Because what are you talking about? The whole show ended 10 minutes short. So in other words, Jeff didn't want to sell and lose. He wanted to look like Hercules and get screwed over. And the next week when I beat him down, but he comes back to win, it's okay. So it takes everything away from me.
But that wasn't the only reason why you were...
No, that pissed me off. That was
the first major...
Yeah, that was the first. Yeah, that was the big heat with me.
That was the first.
Then I talked to the office because we had 2 weeks off. And it's like the first 2 weeks of September were off. And then I was going to go to Germany to do the Hanover tournament. But that would have been the second and the third week. I said, well, I'm going to need that 1 weekend off so I can do the Hanover tournament. So I want to be off for 3 weeks, but then I'll come back on the final. If it's going to affect my position, my spot, anything, I won't go. And I'll stay here. You guys have my full support. No, go ahead, everything will be fine. So you're sure? And I asked Jeff, I asked Vince, I asked Scott, I asked everybody. Everybody said it'd be cool. So I went, when I came back, I said, okay, what are we doing? We don't really have you booked in this week. Give us a couple weeks. I said, what do you mean a couple weeks? I get paid by the fucking week. You're digging into my finances here. What's going on? So after a couple weeks, Scott calls me up and says, okay, we got a spot for you. I said, okay, what is it? He goes, before you get pissy, before you shit on it, let me tell you about it. I said, already I'm hating this.
What, have you been in Germany at the time?
I'd gone to Germany and come back. I said, tell me. He said, we're going to put you in the red shirt security.
What?
The red shirt security. And I was like, okay, bullshit, you're not doing that. He says, Joe, just trust me. Dutch Mantel's taking over as the booker. He's got big plans for you. Now, Dutch Mantel's a piece of shit. He was my booker in Einige, right? And he knows the Puerto Rican artist. He hasn't got a clue about anywhere else. So I said, well, do you understand how bad this is? I said, you're saying that I came in a mainline permanent feud with probably the top babyface in the company, the top push babyface. He's not a very good wrestler, but top push babyface in the company, to use that as my springboard into a career in security. So I said, that's bullshit. That degrades me and does nothing for me. All it does is make me look like absolute fucking shit. No, they got big plans. They want the tag belts on you guys. I said, I don't care about the belts. Belts aren't fucking crap. I'm talking about me getting devalued and not getting used. Now, when I want to get booked somewhere, like because TNA was supposed to help get you bookings everywhere, they had a booking department, independent bookings. I said, now it's either get booked with Kevin or not at all. Why am I being put in a tag team? I don't need this. Well, he says, if you don't take this, they're going to sit you home. He goes, like, I'm telling you, this is your friend. This is what Dutch has come up with. I said, it's because I have long hair and facial hair, and so does Kevin. He said, yeah, because they're going to take the other guy and ship him to Puerto Rico.
Who's Kevin?
Kevin Northcutt.
Kevin Northcutt.
Yeah. He's a really nice guy, and he's got some ability. But the thing is that they brought me in to protect Kevin, because they could put us in. And the thing is, they kept telling us, we can't believe you guys. We beat you every week, but you maintain your heat. We can't kill you guys. I'm like, why don't you use that then? Have us win. Have us get some steam on us, and then when we lose, it matters. We're supposed to be monsters here. You had us lose to a football player. Not even with the company. Not even in the business. Oh, but it'll get you guys on Sportsnet. I go to Sportsnet, getting our asses kicked. On ESPN, getting our asses kicked. That does nothing for the business. That does nothing for us. Trust us, trust us, trust us. Sure enough, did nothing for us. I was there. When the team had to lose, they could pin me. Kevin didn't lose. And then when they break the team up, Kevin they can push and Joe they can push off to the side. That's ultimately what happened.
Why didn't
Then Kevin had 1 week after me because they wanted me to teach him about psychology. Because I'm obsessed with match psychology. So this way Kevin could learn from me, get protected, and get pushed later. But an 8-minute match is hard to teach psychology in that amount of time and then go from tag to singles psychology. So he had 1 week on TV after me, then he was gone. And then I sat at home, I'm like, okay guys, what are we doing? Oh, we don't know. Give us a call. Then they want to answer my calls, I'm asking Scott. Eventually Scott says to me, well, I talked to Jeff this week, I said, you've been training hard, and I watched you working on the DiBiase Christian show and all that stuff. I said to Jeff, you know, Joe's waiting to come back. He's losing money hand over fist. Like, you promised him good money when he came here. You cut his pay by $200 the minute he walked through the door, and then he's sitting home doing nothing. You're not helping me here. What's going on? Jeff said, have him send a tape. I said, send a tape.
Of yours?
Of me.
From when?
I don't know. He says, have him send us a tape. Like I'm
From Europe?
From somewhere. Either way, the point is, he knows my work. He worked with me. So I said,
like a schizophrenic guy.
so I said, Scott, tell Jeff I was going to quit right there, but I said, you know what? No, they're going to give me every dime they owe me. So I'm going to wait out my contract, and they're going to pay me, but I'm not expecting another job with this company. And tell Jeff, if he's anywhere near me, to steer clear. If you're Jeff's friend, tell him to steer clear, because I'm going to be in debt. I'm going to harm him.
That was when you were in Canada or Europe?
I was still living in Canada. I said, I'm going to run out my time in DNA, and I'm going to take my money. When they're going to pay me off, because I still had a certain amount of days left that they had to use on my contract. I said, I want my money in a lump sum at the end of it, and then I'm moving back to Europe. And if I ever see Jeff again, he's not going to walk. I will put that fucker in a wheelchair. And I will do it with a smile on my face. I'll drown him.
That was in 2004 or 5? No,
2003. Yeah, because I left August 2003. I went to Russia and then came to Europe. Came to Germany.
It was this phone call from Scott Trumauer.
Yeah, Scott is I mean, I have no heat with Scott. Scott's a great guy. Scott was basically being the middleman, and now Scott's the top booker there.
Yeah, but because he could have stand up more, you think?
He had no voice in the office because Dutch Mantel was the top, and Dutch is a snake rat.
So Scott has not really the
power. He does now, but he didn't at the time.
So not now.
And now with the amount that I've called Jeff out and called him a piece of shit. I've called Dutch out and called him a piece of shit. Bob Ryder, who's in the office, who lied to me time and again, and he's a travel agent, but for some reason they're giving him booking power. Essentially, he's a short, fat, gay guy who likes to hit on young guys. That's his job at the company. And he likes to snake air miles. He buys the tickets for the guys when they fly in. Yeah, he buys tickets for the guys when they fly in. What he doesn't tell you is that he goes and gets frequent flyer cards under the names of the guys whose tickets he buys. And he puts all those miles on his own account, which is illegal. Because he was doing that to Chris Daniels.
That's a right.
It is. He did it to Chris Daniels, he did it to Chris Saban. He never did it to me because I went and got my own card. But he snaked us, Daniels and Saban. Daniels and Saban didn't say a word because they didn't want to get heat with the company. I don't care if I heat with the company. I would just, there's a philosophy that says, I think it was Edmund Burke. He said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to sit by and do nothing. I won't sit by and do nothing. I'll call him and I'll beat Jeff to death. I will shove Dutch up his ass, and I will freaking crack open anybody's skull who I think is a freaking piece of shit like that. Those three guys, and Bob Ryder. No problem beating shit out of them.
And do you think that will ever happen, or do you think the opportunity will knock someday?
Oh, for me to beat up Jeff?
Yeah.
It can happen. There's a show in Doncaster at the beginning of the year, 2006. I called those guys up.
Yeah, 1PW in Britain.
Yeah. I'd spoken to them, and they said, yeah, we're interested in bringing you in, but we're not sure if we can use you. Like, they had the whole show pretty much booked. They said, we'll see what we can do. And then all of a sudden I heard Jeff was booked, and then I got an email back saying, we love you, we don't have room for you. I think Jeff got on the show and said, listen, I don't want to deal with Joe. Fuck Joe off. I mean, in his mind, Joe doesn't get worried. But quietly to his family, quietly to himself is, Joe's about to strangle me.
Do you think he would cancel the show?
Sure. Do I think he would walk? I think he'd walk.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if he walked.
See, he would come on.
It wouldn't surprise me if he found out I was on the show and called up and said, yeah, I can't make it. I mean, truthfully, he makes enough money. He doesn't need these independent. He hates doing independent shows. Yeah. Which is another dumb reason to put your belt on the guy. But I think he would walk as opposed to, because I haven't made it a secret. I haven't just talked about the guys in the back. Yeah, have I seen Jeff? No, I've been pretty open. He's a snake and a scumbag, and he deserves a beating. He won't understand anything else. So I'd gladly slam him over his head.
Right, so you plan to go to England next year?
If I'm paid to go on, I wouldn't spend a dime to get near Jeff. I wouldn't spend a dime. Just like no fan in the right mind should spend a dime to see Jeff.
So fans like
if
Joe Legend and Jeff Jarrett are on the same show, don't miss it.
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
Miss it.
Oh, they won't book us at the same match, but be in the parking lot, because I'll parking lot the creep.
Yeah.
I would never find Jeff in the back and beat the shit out of him before the show.
No, just
because I wouldn't screw the promoter over like that. Because the promoter's hired me.
Yeah.
There's no way. I mean, he's hired Jeff for his own personal reason.
Yeah.
He isn't hiring Jeff so I can get it.
I can't believe the promoter for it.
Exactly. No, he's just trying to turn a buck, and in turn, I won't cost him a buck. But I'll gladly stand in the parking lot and wait for him. And I'm not doing this to try and draw a crowd into the parking lot. Watch me kick his ass, and I won't be the type to stand there and cut promos and like you see guys outside a bar and I'll kick your ass. Oh yeah, I'll kick your ass and I'll fuck your mother. I wouldn't do that. I have no problem just doing it quietly, just going into the locker room, locking the door, and being the only one to walk out.
So you won't even talk to him or just...
No, I would probably go up to him and say after the show, your life is in my hands.
Yeah.
I'd do it calm, I wouldn't scream and yell. I said, life as you know it is over. Run.
So an apology wouldn't even help?
No, that's being a dick and getting away with it. That's not being the consequence for your action. Responsibility to be responsible. Left-hand path.
Will this company have success with other men like Jeff Jarrett?
If they were to get rid of Jeff, they would be successful. The fact is that having Jeff on board has cost them $20 million since they started.
Good.
Yeah.
Product. Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff on top has cost them $20 million. He has the stink of failure on everything he's touched. Music City Wrestling was run out of Nashville, his hometown. He was the top guy. They went under. He went to WCW. They put him on top. They went under. Even putting Scott Steiner or Booker T, both guys who have talent and charisma, on top, couldn't bring it back after Jeff killed it. And now TNA's lost $20 million for them on top. I mean, does it honestly make sense? The whole industry's going through an ECW renaissance, right? The ECW DVD that Vince put out, like the top-selling DVD of all time. The ECW pay-per-view Vince put out, not one bad review. It's all 4- and 5-star reviews. Shane Douglas runs his hardcore homecoming shows, all ECW talent. And he's making money.
Yeah, so he made money with product, never really.
Well, the thing is, all this ECW stuff is doing business. Just as they're about to go to Spike TV, they've got Raven as their champion. Now, wouldn't it make sense to start the whole show off with Raven, the ECW icon, as your champion for a couple weeks to draw the ECW market to your show? They watch for a couple weeks, then if you have to put the belt on Jeff, have Jeff screw over Raven on TV so people see it. Oh my God. Have them talk about how Extreme Wrestling is the shit, Southern Wrestling is the way to go. Have them beat it with throwing the salt in the eyes, like a real Southern finish. That will piss off all your ECW fans. ECW will be a friggin' Raven will be a sympathetic babyface. And Jeff's a big heel for stealing the belt. Instead, a couple days before, they do a show in Windsor, Canada, Border City Wrestling, and Jeff beats Raven in front of a couple hundred people without TV to win the belt, so that he can have the belt the first day they go on TV. Now what? Now he has to prove he's a heel. It did nothing for business for him to walk on TV with that belt, but he has such little faith in the product lasting that he wants to make sure that if you see it, if you watch TNA for a limited time it'll be on, you saw it with him with the belt on.
So how long do you think will this Jeff Jarrett reign last? Do you think he will be in the business?
How many times has he held it now? 4 or 5 times he's held it?
Yeah.
Held it beat AJ a couple times and beat Ron Killings a couple times. And now he's beat Raven. Rhino. So like 6 times, something like that.
Yeah.
With absolutely no interest. It's obvious that it's not him, or it's not the interest in Jeff that's keeping the belt on him, because he's not interesting.
You think
something else is keeping the belt on him, and that's backstage politics. So Jeff will keep the belt until it's completely worthless.
So the Dixie Carter is the money backer for TNA?
Well, Dixie Carter's family is the money backer. She's the liaison between Pan Energy and TNA.
So when Dixie will step back, or the Dixie's family will step back, is it how much the fact that there will be the end of TNA?
TNA almost went under. If Panda didn't buy them, they would have gone under the first year. Pan Energy stepped in. Basically, Dixie and Jeff have known each other a long time.
Yeah, close.
Yes. So I have no personal proof, so I mean...
So despite that he's married?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's still going on today or not. It's not for me to say.
Okay.
But they've known each other a long time, and she essentially is a mark for Jeff. And how big a mark, you know, is up to you to decide. But it's her influence, I think. You know, I think it's Jeff getting in her ear and getting her to tell the office this is what we want, make it happen. To me, Scott D'Amore is running things right now. He's too smart to have done that, to put the belt on Jeff. Too smart, much too smart. I know Scott would love to put the belt on Rhino and leave it on, because Rhino's money. Even after everything Vince did to bury him, he's still money. And watch crowds react to him. It's just a matter of, you know, Scott having his hands tied. Ultimately, the money people tell you this is what we want. Scott's got to find a way to make it happen, try to make the best of a bad situation. So Scott, unfortunately, you know, I mean, he might tell you different because, you know, he's in charge and stuff like that. He's got to kind of toe the company line. But I think he's too smart to have done that.
So Scott D'Amore is a guy that you can trust on?
Yes, Scott D'Amore is a great guy. I couldn't put him over strongly enough. I think he's a great guy who is also smart enough to know how to protect his job. He's got a, you know, I think he just signed another 2-year deal with him. So as long as they're in business, I don't think they're going to last, but as long as they're in business, he's basically got a job. He's got money in his pocket. I can't blame him for not, you know, screwing that. I mean, I'm more a man of principle on how I was treated. Scott has been able to get around that. I mean, I don't think they treated him very well, but now they are. They're starting to. If I were Scott, I probably would have walked ages ago, but then I wouldn't have a job in the booking team like he has.
So, getting back to your career, what are your plans? Obviously, you're going to stay in Europe for your career. Do you think
Sure.
Yeah, you plan to stay here?
Yeah, absolutely. I love wrestling in Europe. European wrestling fans are awesome. They're enthusiastic. They're knowledgeable. It's amazing to go. I mean, they hit the internet and you go to shows and people have brought me photos signed pictures of me from '93. You know, yeah, like pictures like holy cow! I forgot I had such a bad haircut. You know?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean the fans here are great. There's no reason why I wouldn't want to perform for them because I've never been a politician. I hate the politics violence. I hate using the term politics because politics would imply importance, and it's just schoolyard games. I'm just all about the performance part of the business, and if I get a booking position, great. But I don't piss about. I don't sit there and say, oh, you're awesome, and then go to somebody else, this guy sucks, let's bury him. If I don't really like your work, I will try and find the nice way to say it. I won't just go, yeah, you suck, fuck off. You know, I won't be a dick about it. But I will say, you know, I don't really think that what you have to offer is what we're looking for right now. You know, give me a reason. Give me a reason or something we can do with you that will make sense, that will work for us.
You think you could be involved in bookings?
Absolutely.
Or in some European promotions?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah. I mean, I've had talks with FWA about possibly, I know they want me to do some Asian work, which is cool with me. I like doing that. And I mean, I'd like to be part of the writing, because I like to see things develop, and I'd like to see them develop correctly. And when I watch WWE, or when I read, I shouldn't say watch it, when I read about WWE, everything starts in the ring, and then branches out, and then just kind of fizzles out, nobody knows what happened to it. But when you, years ago when it was actually making money, things maybe started off in the ring, branched out, but it ultimately segued back into a match where everything finished in the ring, and the fans had to pay to see that. That was how the business made its money. And things had, the final trump card, the final battle had to be fought in the ring. They don't do that anymore. I would like to bring it back to some psychology that actually matters.
You think you're gonna promote your own thing? You run your own promotion someday here in Europe?
Chances are I will probably. This sounds so cheap, but
due to the law and the legal stuff,
I don't have the. Once again, I'm not a politician, so I couldn't sit there and argue with somebody, a politician, if I was running the show. I'm more than happy to help somebody else. I'd probably run somebody else's promotion. I'd be more comfortable doing that. And plus, I just don't want to risk my money. Yeah, truthfully, I wouldn't want to risk my money on a venture that might not fly. I mean, I'd like to think I know what I'm talking about, but who knows? If I don't read the audience right, if we come up with a gimmick or an angle that's offensive and turn people off, I'd be costing myself money for this. If I work for somebody else, I'd have to throw it by somebody who might give me a perspective I didn't look at. Oh, shit, yeah, you're right. Again, it's on SmackDown. They did a thing with Randy Orton and a lowrider car. An Undertaker was there. And the whole thing was very controversial because it's like saying, oh, well, remember Eddie Guerrero? There's people are very offended by that. I would never have done that. But somebody thought of that. And maybe if they'd had somebody in here say, you know what, maybe that's a bit too soon. Maybe they wouldn't have done it, they wouldn't have pissed off so many people.
How do you plan to wrestling until
a couple more weeks? I'd like to do it, I don't want to say until I can't. I'd like to do it until financially I don't need to.
So at least 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, if I could do it exclusively in Europe and Japan, great. If I could make a good wage in Japan, I'd like to do it so that I could just pick and choose my shows, but I had enough money where I didn't need to worry about it. So I mean, it's just basically until I'm comfortable. Until I get it out of my system, I get antsy if I'm not on the road.
Yeah, we're almost done, but I just forgot who came up with the name Joe Legend.
Me.
Yeah, of course. And
I just.
Wasn't a bit cocky to call yourself
yeah, that's obnoxious. But no, I just did it.
Fits the wrestling.
Yeah, I was working at a bar one night and just I was doing stuff to bug some people, because I enjoy aggravating. I get bored quick and I hate bars. So I got bored quick, so I just started aggravating people and they say, oh, why would you do that? Why would you say that? Whatever I say. I'm like, I do it because I'm Joey Legend. I do what I want. I walk away and I just thought, that's ignorant. And by the end of the night, people are like, shut up, Joey Legend. I'm like, this has steam on it. People, if I'm just aggravating 3 people with this, holy cow, what could I do with it on a larger scale? Yeah, so I jumped on it. And ultimately, when I've been Joey Legend, I've been happy. When people have played with it and done different things. And
Joe X, I will mention.
Yeah.
What about that?
I honestly don't know. Peter Williams took me into his office and said, I've got this great idea for a gimmick. I don't even think it means extra large. He took me into his office and said, we've got a great idea. I said, okay, what is it? He said, something to do with XL. He started going on. I was like, about 5 minutes, I was like, are you guys still paying me? He's like, oh yeah. Then I love it. Best gimmick ever. Can I go now? But that was my day. I came up just because it's obnoxious. And plus, I mean, legend implies somebody larger than somebody great. Joe is very average. Average Joe, as the term goes. So it's, as a heel, if you want to look deeply into it, I'm the average guy who claims to be bigger, which is just annoying when somebody who you know sucks thinks they're awesome. So an average guy who claims he's awesome, that's the idea behind Joey Legend. But Edward, like I say, he's for Edward, my middle name, which is actually my dad's first name.
Just Edward Hitchens.
Yeah.
To refer right?
Yeah. And my dad's name's Edward Joseph Hitchens. And my dad is a very, very good man. So if I can bring some of that into my life, I'm more than proud to kind of have my dad's name involved in my life.
All right, any closing words to our fans?
Just
the European fans.
Check out my website, legendwrestling.com. Come out and see me in any of my dates. I've got a date book on there, calendar of events. And want to know the whole story from TNA and all that garbage I had to put up with. I have a column called Diary of a Madman, and yes, it's because I'm an Ozzy Osbourne fan. Diary of a Madman. we'll clear all that up. I think it's number 3. I've got 10 columns up so far. I got to get to work on 11, but I've been procrastinating. So check out my website and come see me wrestle. And I may be obnoxious, I may be a babyface, who knows? But I'll definitely, you'll get your money's worth. I'll work my ass off.
Okay, thanks, Joey Legend, and till tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.